the RPGA Living Greyhawk if you were involved in Living City or any other living campaigns, Pathfinder Society, etc. Oh, I've got my damn audio on. There we go.
Yeah, you may have some bounce
back. I did some research about my own history earlier today. I was like, how did I start?
You'll find it all comes back to you, though. It's going to be great fun.
Yeah, because it's funny, because Eric Marno always goes, oh, that was so long ago, and then boom, 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 and then he doesn't
wait 2 minutes.
And then he just he goes round, goes like crazy. So.
Oh, I do like these figures, though. This is very pretty.
Yeah, I'm quite jealous.
Yeah.
It's an incredible setup.
Yep.
Well, that's the
I'm
advert.
watching on the other screen here.
Yeah, I got my ads going.
Jealous.
I got a bunch of sponsors and stuff like Reaper and Troller Games
and you have Bill.
Got it today.
What's that?
You have Bill too.
Yeah, so we are 10 seconds ahead of the live feed, I believe.
That's why, if you want, pin my screen, and then that'll give you actually what's going on at the exact time in Zoom. Pin my Zoom screen.
Good idea.
Yep.
Aha! Those are some very pretty looking dice as well. I'm just going to spend the whole screen going, oh, pretty.
Yeah.
Send me the link.
Did any of you catch the joust Saturday night during GrowCon?
I did, actually. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that was that's the penultimate as far as setups go. As far as 3D prints and 18 mounted painted miniatures from Reaper, a lot, crazy stuff. It's really cool. But thank you. Yeah, Luke was really really loved participating in that. He knew the chainmail rules, so he did really well.
Yeah, you got to the semi-final. What I was impressed was because you had more cameras, sort of just seeing the scale of your setup in your basement.
Thank you.
Incredible. Yeah, it's amazing.
The basement is nuts.
Casey and Anna have both been in the basement. They both survived it, and they came out. It's not like they got buried there. So.
Sounds like you might be in more danger of not wanting to leave than being trapped.
Yes. Yeah. No, please trap me in the basement.
Yes,
it's an amazing setup.
Tim, this is a big Legends of Lore. These are the gentlemen from the UK and Ireland from Living Greyhawk Onnwal, and some of these are real. A ton of submissions and things that have really enhanced the Greyhawk campaign over the years. Stuff I use. So, that's the ever mysterious Tim, and he's got if you're in chat now, gents, he has his own head as an emote, so because he deserves it.
There we go.
Tim loves a good critical.
I should say I've been the Avon Avengers and I've piped up on a few streams that you've done with various candies. That's my name because that's the name of.
Oh.
Yeah, that's my nom de plume. That's my alias.
And I'm Langscathe on Twitch because the singer is taken.
That's what I was talking about at one point without realizing it.
Who's who said they're Langscathe on Twitch?
Paul, I am.
So Paul, you're Wosinger and Langscathe.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Twitch. Because reasons.
Connor. Okay.
Real Wosinger.
Yeah, it was real underscore Wosinger
too.
See, it takes a while to get the real name, Discord name, Twitch name, Facebook persona, all attached to the same person. Oh,
yeah.
So.
Yeah. The other half of the time it was because of another player who we could do an entire show on just what he did. Oh God, yes.
I've got
He
a
was a
feeling I
number
know
one
who
player.
you
Oh,
mean.
hey, anybody down there that isn't
The
a
Codex
bandit, I
Sinaiticus
need
is
healing.
filled with monsters,
Twang hard,
gods,
dead.
warriors, and more on a level that will be
Don't worry, everyone. We'll get started a little early. I'll after the trailer of that, we'll start getting into the pre-live streams where screens. We're good.
and is complete with keys
Everyone's a little excited here, so we'll get
legendary
rolling a little
abilities
early.
associated with it.
Early's good.
And
More time for
sorcery,
everyone.
spellcraft,
Okay.
and fortune telling. Even
Alrighty.
enchanted charms are explored.
Now I got some names attached.
There's
Once I get some
about
VIP badges
adventures
open, I'll
and
throw you
tales
some of
set in
those.
Popular Chinese fantasy styles
you.
like wuxia and more, while within a pseudo-historical setting.
Hope everyone's doing well on a Saturday morning.
Castle keeper or game master.
Thanks, Troy.
Researched and written by Brian Young, the wildly popular
Triple
mythos
Games has
series
some new
delves
books coming
into
out
the
here.
mythos of the ancient
So
world, bringing hosts of gods and heroes, legends and lore, and even the monsters and foes that plague the peoples of
it got
ancient
quiet all of a
times,
sudden.
to the stories
Type and talk at the same time.
Yeah, typing and talking is
Codex
difficult.
Sinaiticus brings
To not
ancient
type
knowledge
during the,
to your
during the
Thank
game.
you, Stuart.
Join us and pledge today.
Sorry?
Thank you, Stuart.
No problem.
No idea what.
Join the fray.
If you go to that,
Creighton and Simon, are you guys in the chat as well? I'm just trying to keep
Oh,
track.
yeah.
On what chat? So
Watch out.
I've sent you a link, right? If you go to that, it will go to the Twitch page, which is where everybody else will see what we're saying. There's a chat on the right.
That's what we're all busy doing on our second screens.
Yeah, and you want to mute that. You want to make sure that Twitch is muted.
Yeah.
For the audience, if you have questions for us, it helps to tag us. Otherwise, the chat's going
Yeah,
so fast
an
you
ad
might
or
not
whatever.
see it.
Hey, Alex.
Okay. So Twitch TV.
Good, I got some mods on. That's good.
Broadcast have indicated that this channel is intended for mature audiences. Are we?
Yeah, well, I do show a picture, a faux picture, of someone getting a tongue ripped out. The video, and it's just a joke. And sometimes the swear words come up, especially Anna. Anna swears all the time.
Yep.
Like a sailor,
Yep. Every show.
Like a photographer.
cartographer.
Yep. Very few.
It is overrated, but Phantom, I put it up there because just to play it safe. You got to dot the i's across the t's on Twitch. You really do. All right, we're gonna have a really great discussion here.
Oh, nice piece of art.
Welcome to Legends Lore.
Love that. Greg Wars cover.
that is a great picture.
Yep.
Yeah.
Living Greyhawk Onnwal.
Yeah.
I will be. It's all in the programming of the broadcast software, gents. Zan is learning. Zan for the first time streamed her Twitch game. Streamed her game on Twitch during the GrokCon last week. What's up, Bent Metal? I think Bent Metal's from Poland. So we have someone from France, someone from Poland in the chat already, which is great.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I should probably have a Twitch account for this, shouldn't I?
That kind of helps.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's easy to set up.
Oh, yeah. You need
Oh,
to have
Thailand, Ben. I'm sorry. You're Thailand. Yeah, I'm sorry. Someone.
You need to have a Twitch account so you
Very
can
later.
phone all the noobs,
Sup?
right?
One of my sons has my Twitch. I have a Twitch account, but I'm not allowed into it because he uses it.
They are
Because
free.
it's linked to our Amazon Prime, so he gets all the bonuses that apparently you get through Amazon Prime.
Yeah, absolutely. You get a
Oh,
free
yeah,
subscription.
yeah.
And,
Free
But I'm
gaming
not allowed
stuff.
to use it. Like make another one at some point.
Yeah. There's free stuff on Amazon Prime. See, I use Twitch, but mainly to taunt people in video games. like a
You,
grown up.
Stuart, taunt people, Stuart. No.
Nah.
Oh, I'm a pussycat compared to some of the people out there. I'm
I'm
lovely.
sure you are.
I'll stab you in the front and then I'll go, haha, oh, are you alright?
Good news, I might tune in soon, apparently, according to my younger son.
Alright.
All right.
So the
Excellent.
comments aren't me. Super clear.
Your numbers are lovely.
I thought Creighton was seeming very insightful in the comments there.
That's your social media team there.
Good evening.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
my
morning.
director of new media.
What is it? Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, on a Saturday morning special Legends and Lore. I'm J.K. Lorcasumba. With me is the great Anna B. Meyer, and joining us as always during Living Greyhawk discussions, Casey Brown. Got some wonderful guests today, so please hang out and enjoy this discussion on Living Greyhawk Onnwal. It's going to be fun. So I think I got everyone here. Let's start. We'll start upper left. So Creighton Broadhurst. Creighton, introduce yourself, please. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Creighton, original Onnwal tribe member, I think, with Simon.
Indeed.
Year 0, year 1.
Year 0. I checked my CV the other day.
And Stuart.
Well, I joined. I'm Stuart. I'm Scottish. I joined the Triad year 2, but I joined towards the end of year 1. We had a design team. I joined that because Jason Bullman killed my character.
No.
Yeah.
The only thing he
Instant
killed.
death, no saving throw, kind of thing. I was the
Wow.
paladin. We were in a crusher. I was a paladin. There were 2 other players in the crusher. I should have done what the other paladins would have done and thrown them to the ground and dashed out, but I let them go first.
Where was that? Where was Jason?
This was at Gen Con UK 2001. So just towards the end of the first
Wow.
year. I went, I can't be bothered creating another character. I'll just join the team.
We paid him to do that.
Don't have crushers in them.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
wasn't it?
My PC died, so I'll just be an admin.
Yeah, well, it was my first core. I'd only ever played Onwals and Adaptables. It was my first core, and I died horribly. Not counting the Temple of Elemental Evil, which I somehow survived.
Yeah, Bullman was known for being a very tough dungeon master.
He didn't GM it. He wasn't GMing it. He merely wrote the script that killed me.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't there.
Right, mod author too.
15 years later, I told him about it, and he laughed in my face, and I deserved it. I should have just thrown those other party members on the ground, stabbed them, and gone, "I'm the paladin. I need to live," and ran out.
Or for drinking in a bar and destroying 10 the next day.
Oh yeah, well yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
We know that legendary story.
Moment silence for 10
compared to that.
Simon, thank you for joining us on short notice.
Thank you. No problem. I heard yesterday. Oof. Joined in 2000. Basically, long-term RPGA UK member, came up the ranks. Partly because where I used to work in Cambridge was an airfield that was just opposite where TSR used to be, which is Church End, Cherry Hinton, Cambridge, which is where a lot of second ed, third ed stuff was written, like the I series, for instance.
Great.
Okay.
Very cool.
I started at university gaming like a lot of other people, and then basically I had this boring aircraft job, and at lunch times I could actually go to TSR and basically chat to interesting people and read lots of dragons and dragon magazines and stuff like that in various languages. So
wow.
So that was all nice and all nice and cool. Then I was involved with running schools competitions and also student nationals and stuff like that. Then I got then of course my story for actually originally being invited to Triad to be an LG Triad member was that I was invited to a party.
Okay,
we're gonna have to circle.
And that party was a person called Sean Connor. Okay, and another writer. And Sean Connor was looking for a person who basically would be the RPGA crossover into the Living Greyhawk Triad. And he asked me, and I said yes, and it started from that.
Beautiful.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we're going to circle back to get more details on that, Simon.
If
thank
I can
you.
remember them.
and
Paul.
Hey, hi there. So this feels a bit like a setup for a joke, like 2 Englishmen, a Scotsman, and an Irishman walk into a live stream. So I also joined, I think I joined the Triad in year 1, but I was there at that first fateful meeting in Dudley, which was the first sort of get together of people for Living Greyhawk in, I believe, the summer of 2000. It's a long time ago.
And
So-
Dudley's a suburb of Birmingham, isn't it? Just,
Yes, it's a lovely place.
it's a lovely place to be in Birmingham. Spits off whenever they get the chance.
Sorry, Dudley people. So I was on there, and then I couldn't join the Triad initially because I was writing up my PhD thesis. But once that was finished in 2001, I joined the team. But I was involved in writing the Gazetteer, and then I was on the Triad, I think, up until 2004, and then. Was it Creighton? You went up? I can't remember who went up. But anyway,
I've just consulted my notes. I joined the circle in January or February 2002.
Right.
That'll be when I
And then I think
Triad
Stuart
there.
And that's
took
when we
over
got
from me.
Stuart in. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
that
already
him.
on.
Yeah.
At some point, I went to the Circle for a year for the Splintered Sun meta region, and then I got a real job editing that actually paid some money. So I had to I sent a letter to SRM saying, "Well, this job pays me money, so I'm going to take that." So I went off and did that, and that was the end of my official capacity with Living Greyhawk. But
So,
we did
Paul, I'd
Mysterious
forgotten.
Places for years afterwards.
I'd forgotten you were Circle.
Yeah.
And so that must have been after Creighton. Did you retire from the Circle, or?
No,
Creighton went to- got
I
promoted.
went from the Triad to the Circle to run the Splintered Sun, and then SRM stopped editing all the core modules and asked for someone to do the core stuff. So I moved across to the core stuff, and then Paul. Well, actually, I think it was more pushed. Honestly, Paul, as I recall.
Let's use the word ascended.
Encouraged.
Press-ganged.
Oh, right.
Then Paul took over the side of the Splintered Sun, I think.
Right, and you
Splintered Sun.
became Circle member for the core. Right, of course, there were 6, and we only had 5 meta regions. Now it's coming back.
Yeah.
And then Paul fills in for Splinter Suns. For the audience, the regions of Greyhawk corresponded to real-world locations. Onnwal was the UK and Ireland, right? What we might call the British Isles here in America. Hopefully that's not offensive to the Scot or the
Terribly.
Probably not.
Irish.
We're an
gentlemen.
island? What?
And their meta region would consist of the European nations. So what all we had? We had Alyssa, was Germany and
French.
Austria, etc. The
French
Bone
didn't wanna
March,
be there.
the Lordship of the Isles, the Sea Barons, Sundi, Dulstrand. So these were all European areas
And
for the
Mary was the
campaign.
Scandinavian countries.
Mhm.
Bone March
Yeah.
briefly.
Yes.
Bone March briefly.
So when you hear
Yeah.
Splintered Suns, that's what they're referring to. It's a meta region.
It was originally called The Mash, or as we read it, all the bits that were left over
Yes.
from the other
Great.
4 meta regions. So
I think
Paul
we came up
with
with
a
the
much
idea of
better name
Splintered
for it
Sun.
than just
Yeah.
the leftovers.
Bits and bobs.
Yeah,
Hey,
but
let's-
the French weren't in that meta region. Am I right?
They were
No.
They were Ekbeer.
They were
wanted to
Ekbeer,
be with
because-
the
Yeah.
Canadian.
Quebec.
Ekbeer was in what? The
Back to Niche
VTF,
West. Yeah.
the Velderviva to Flicking
Maybe.
Falls.
Oh,
So I want to ask real quick. We don't often get the Triad members who were there for year 0. You know, we have for Joff and for a couple other regions. But what we know is the RPGA assigned the regions based on RPGA play numbers. They let the most active RPGA regions pick first. And that's why Virginia, DC, etc., they ended up with Joff. For those of you who were at that year zero meeting you mentioned in Dudley, I'm not familiar with Dudley. I actually used to live in Cobham, Surrey, back in the 80s, outside of London. But if you were at that meeting, were you part of that choice process? Were any of you involved, or did the RPGA just say you're Onnwal, go?
Yes, they said we're Onnwal.
Very much so.
Yeah, it was set by that stage. I remember writing a letter or an email to, I don't know, Eric Mona or Ryan Dancy or someone said, can we be Nyrond? Which I now recognize as being incredibly naive. Because my home campaign had been set in Nyrond, and I knew a lot about Nyrond. I was like, hey, well, I'm willing to volunteer and do this. And that's possibly how I got invited to that Dudley meeting. But no, it was certainly set by the time we were turned up in Dudley. It was Onnwal. I was like, oh, what do we know about Onnwal?
And where is it?
Previously, nothing.
But then, Creighton, you did your due diligence and produced a document. There was actually quite a lot of stuff on Onnwal, but it was all scattered through supplements.
Yeah.
Everything.
Things like Treasures of Greyhawk,
Little bits here and
entire
there.
adventure set there.
And there was some stuff in some of the older Dragon magazines about some fighting in the 575, 576.
That's where we got the town of Kildare came from, one of Gary
Exactly.
Gygax's articles.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right.
And Dunhead Bay.
Yeah, did some deep diving.
Yes, I've forgotten about that. Thank you, Stuart.
That's all right. I remember, so you don't have to.
Probably still got the files.
We do.
Yeah,
That's one of the nice things
Thanks
about
to Simon.
Butler, isn't it? You can go digging and find stuff.
yeah. These guys did a lot of good work, you know, and it was all put into a gazetteer that no one was allowed to read for the first 2 years.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a story here.
What do you?
We'll come
The
to that.
blur.
I
It's
can't-
Yeah,
even
why is it
blurring
blurring?
on. So you're not allowed to see it. You see.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
Shawnee working the filters in the background. No.
It's the designer handbook. It's my. I think I have it from back in the day. It's got my name
Yeah.
on it, but it was the version of the gazetteer with all the secret bits in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
For the
Don't
authors.
worry. Don't worry. Those are available now to people who want them.
And later tribe members.
Literally,
But
I'm
they
gonna
are
get a lot of
blurred.
DMs suddenly going.
They're illegible.
We've touched on the legality of Living Greyhawk documents on the show in the past, but a quick primer for the audience. The adventures are still copyright, either Wizards of the Coast or the mod author. It just various things depend. But we do think that the campaign documents, such as meta-org guidebooks and things of that nature, should be fair game because they were fan creations. They weren't reviewed, they weren't copywritten, they were fair game and downloadable anywhere in the world for 8 years or whatever. So if you want to get a meta-org document, I think you should be able to get that. But don't ask for the adventures. They're at least in the US, the copyright laws are still in effect.
I still get requests for adventures via email.
I've got.
Yeah.
A
We get them.
Start getting them.
You see them on Facebook almost every day, right?
Right.
In a lot of
It's
the
a shame.
groups, and it's hard to say. Well, there's really not much we can do about it, and that's a shame. But it's it's understandable with all the issues going out there. But
A shame because
hey,
in
Mike
some
Mons.
ways, it's got the most art. We've got the most adventures of any campaign setting, really. I think if you add. them
Oh
all
my
together.
gosh, it's insane.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You see them pop up though, like for example, Alan Grohe ran Eric Mona's River of Blood during GrowtCon. So, and then you see like Zeef and Dickerus is on John Dawes. He did some during GrowtCon as well for the Zeef area, and then we have Greyhawk Reborn is doing Keelan still, new content. So you are seeing some out there actually that people can play in, which is
I converted some of mine to Pathfinder 1E, stripped out the Greyhawk content, and I sell them on Drive-Thru RPG. I haven't done a conversion in a couple of years, and I'm thinking about switching to 5th edition because Pathfinder 1E sales for me just tanked as soon as they announced 2E. But anyway, that's just a quick aside on that topic. Let me circle back to the early years. Were any of you involved in Living City prior to Living Greyhawk?
I wasn't
Minimally.
in Living City, but I was an area coordinator and then regional director for the RPGA. I discovered.
Was that a lot of work, Creighton?
Actually, I think it's why I became a tribe member, because I was an area coordinator for Torquay, which is where I live now in the UK. It's on the south coast. And we ran a living campaign at the local game shop called Deep Delve, which was a mega dungeon under the town of Hokoch, sort of over in Joff area. I think it's
okay.
Joff, isn't it? And we ran that for several years. And the regional director of the area at the time, Mark Smith, came across to see what we were doing. We had about 4 DMs and 30 players. And so he made me an area coordinator because of that. And then when he moved up to the steering committee, the UK steering committee, they made me regional director, which is probably why, they knew me before the Living Greyhawk started, as it were.
Oh, that's great. That's interesting. At the local UK RPGA level, were there any of the people who had been involved with TSR UK still around, who had been on the U1 through 3 design team or anything like that?
Not,
Do you
not
know?
that I know. I think that was
Completely
probably
its
slightly
own
before
new
my
thing.
time. Yeah, we were
Okay.
about 90. I think to go back to your question, Living City was around at the time, but it being the Forgotten Realms and me being quite a Greyhawk fan, it wasn't my bag.
It's
Simon,
a different,
did you do
it's a
anything,
different
Simon?
city to the one that was in America anyway. It was Sarbanar. It was kind of
Yes,
its own
Sarbanar.
thing.
It was yeah. As far as Living City is concerned, it was Sabranar. I actually GM'd a couple of times, and I had a friend who was really into it. And then it basically sort of floated away on his own devices. So it just became its own entity and sort of just maneuvered itself away.
It was a little bit more kind of British. It was a bit Discworldy and a bit wacky. Living City in the UK. I think is that fair to say, Paul?
Huh.
I'd never played it.
I know, but we kind of got the expectation that our campaign would be a bit like that as well, and ours was not wacky and off the wall. It was wacky,
No.
but you didn't want to be something
not
off
off
the
the
wall.
wall. Yeah.
In the U.S., Living City was known for being Monty Hall, right? Low-level
Right.
characters would have +5 swords and stuff like that. For the audience, it was set in what, the Raven's Bluff? Was that the
Yes.
in the Forgotten Realms? So I just
UK.
wanted to see if your RPGA, if you predated Living Greyhawk and how you got into Greyhawk. But how did you guys? Let's just start. How did you get into D&D and Greyhawk specifically? Let's start with Paul.
Oh, well, it started with the Saga of Old City, which you can't
It's
see. 'cause
blurry again.
It's blurry again. Everything's redacted. Good grief. I'm going to turn the blur off
Luckily,
anyway.
we can see you, Paul.
I know, it's so you can see me. So I started with Saga of Old City. Aged about 12. I was actually visiting London and picked that up in a bookshop. And then the next day I picked up the World of Greyhawk box set. And then suddenly I was hooked on the World of Greyhawk. But interesting, for years, I never played an adventure in it because I was one of those people in the 80s who didn't have a lot of people to play with, sadly. So it wasn't until I read all the source books, but never actually played any of the classic adventures like the ones on Jay's Wall or anything like that. And it wasn't until I got to university and college that we started playing a From the Ashes era Niron campaign, which we're still playing. It's still kind of going 30 some years later.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's great.
it's been on hiatus for since COVID, but we're trying to get it revived. But yeah, so from that, then I was obviously hooked on Greyhawk, and particularly Nyrond. I went to Scotland and I GM'd for Stuart. I think I got you hooked on Greyhawk. I don't know. Was that your
All
first
your
experience with Greyhawk? It's all my fault. Okay.
Yeah, I still have flashbacks to running through the forests, being chased by orcs on my own with the rest of the party safely to village.
Yeah,
That's
that's
like
my.
something out of Last of the
Sounds like
Mohicans.
something I would do.
Yeah.
You mentioned London and shopping. As a kid in '87, that's where I bought the Red Basics set. Was at Harrods department store, I think it was
Ooh.
called.
Oh, Harrods, that's fancy.
In London. I thought they had a game,
I got it in
game
Hamleys.
floor when I was a
Yeah.
kid. But anyway, I bought the Red Basic set when I lived in London, I think in '86 or '87.
Yeah, it was about the same time. It was like I think it was 86, if the numbers work out right. And yeah, I got that in. What's the big bookstore in? Is that Hamleys? No, Hamleys is the toy store. It's a big famous
Hamleys is a big
bookstore on
bookstore.
Oxford Street. So maybe it's Hamleys. Anyway, that's how I got started. And then I had been in contact with Noel Graham then. For a while, he worked on Falcon's Bazaar, of course, in Dragon. And we were sort of he was trying to get a chapbook together about Verbabonk, and I was kind of helping him out with that. I went on holiday to Innsbruck and spent an afternoon taking pictures of wrought iron shop signs, because he was very, very interested in intricate details of things. He was trying to do that for Verbabonk. And I think with that, that's how I heard about Living Greyhawk was going to happen. And then I wrote that email about, hey, can we have Nyrond? And then someone forwarded me on to, and then I ended up in Dudley one day talking to these guys, or some of these guys anyway. And that's kind of how I got into this thing.
That's how you get yourself trapped in Dudley.
Right. If you write a letter to the RPGA, they will just put you in charge of something, apparently. So I love that.
Dudley
Oh,
was
yeah.
Seems to be.
Simon, how did you get involved?
Oh well, started at university. Started at university, basically in '81. We built up the usual sort of gaming club. Did actually run some living Greyhawk there. Then, as I explained before, it just carried on from university. There was a campaign with a few other people that we occasionally ran. For instance, Mick Hand, who's quite well known, was one of them. And we drifted through the '80s, and then made a decision to actually get closer to the RPGA who were actually in Cambridge as well. So started becoming a part of that organisation. Started to do a little bit of Living City organisation with some friends. That actually built up. And then after that, it drifted through a whole pile of conventions, and we got to the start of everything in 1999, 2000.
How did you find Greyhawk specifically?
Well, it became the favourite system. The favourite background more than anything else. I was basically in the universities and also working full time. I'm actually about at least 10 years older than my compatriots. You see, so we were in slightly different worlds. But it became the favourite system for a large number of reasons, and from then, it just all sort of grew. I mean, the organized gaming was these. We had national schools competition every year, for instance, where all the schools would actually enter, and basically the final schools would actually be fight out for a prize to actually visit Gen Con that year, actually at the Tower of London.
Wow.
You know,
wait, Gen Con in the UK is at the Tower of London.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
That's pretty cool.
It was
Did
back
you
then,
visit
maybe.
You didn't have.
Oh my God.
It wouldn't have held that, but basically the final schools were actually run in the Tower of London, right next to the Crown Jewels.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
playing a
If you
role?
have never been to London, if you ever get to go, you've got to go to the Tower of London. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Winners got to Gen Con US, all expenses paid.
It used to be that you
Wow,
had to
that's
commit a
awesome.
crime to get there, but now you just win a tournament.
Yeah, exactly. So I was involved in a lot of that, and then I came in at the start of at the start of LG because Sean Connor was one of the original Circle of Six, and he needed a triad member, so there was this party, and he asked me to do it, and I said yes. So there you go.
Awesome.
That's
Well,
brilliant. Gary
party.
Nolian, I see now, is in the chat. I don't know if we saw him earlier. Gary, let us know who wrote Onnwal in the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know that.
Yeah.
It's quite a small entry, isn't it? I was thinking the other. Maybe I'm just imagining it. It seemed quite small compared to, I don't know, say Rel Astra.
Starts on page 79, ends on page 80. Yeah, it's about 3 columns worth of info.
Well, in some ways that's helpful if you've got less to work with.
Yeah.
Because you're not locked into something.
Yeah, just
We
like the original
mined that.
glossography, man. A couple paragraphs, that's all you need, right?
You know,
Two
some stuff happened here. Figure it out.
Mind every word of that little description.
Oh, yeah.
We will circle back to, like, did you guys nuke the region or kill cannon leaders or whatever after
like every
diving in, because a lot of the regions in the US just said, like, all right, here's the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer, this guy's in charge. Nope, not anymore. And killed them.
Hopefully not in the very first module they did that, you know.
Pretty early, it
You
seemed
wander
like
into
in
a
there.
10x10 room and there's a dead King Linward.
Yeah. Welcome to Living Greyhawk. There's the chaos. But Stuart, how did you in Scotland find Greyhawk and then B Living Greyhawk?
I got on my bike, went to my best friend's house, and he was playing this game with models, and the game was called Advanced Hero Quest, which was Hero Quest was a board game that's come out recently again by Hasbro. And this kind of signifies my entire gaming career. I never started with the regular one. I went straight to advanced because that's how hardcore I was. I played that, and it was basically you rolled dice to generate the dungeon, and I was like, this game's amazing. You could play it forever, and it will never get boring. And I've played it recently. It does kind of get a bit boring after a while. I still love it. And that was kind of my gateway. Advanced Hero Quest. Then I went to Aberdeen and found in a model shop the Red Dragon box set. Bought that, played it. Then I got the big black one with all the kind of cardboard standouts as well, and the big fold-out map of Zanzertam's dungeon or something. And I was a Mystara guy when I met Paul. And I remember him and someone else laughing at me going, Mystara is just this hodgepodge of nations. You know, it doesn't make any sense. The climate doesn't make sense. And now I sit there going, Bright Desert.
Anna has her theories, though, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I went to university, joined the university club. Paul was there. He was older and much cooler than me. I was just this little nerd. Everybody was like, you know, there are other games than Dungeons and Dragons out there. So I went, okay, and I learned all these other games. Eventually, Paul was running Dungeons and Dragons. I joined. We had great fun for about 2.5 years. Some really wacky stories. And you know, when Living Greyhawk started and I realized Paul was involved, I looked at where I wanted to play basically, but there weren't a lot of opportunities in Scotland. There were 2 conventions a year, and they would run 2 slots of Living Greyhawk per year. And I think that was a lot as a player. So eventually I kind of, you know, all right, if no one else is going to do it, I guess I'll do it. Because we had a policy that even if you were on the design team, you weren't allowed to play.
Yeah.
Because we thought that might be a conflict of interest. You know, that I did write an article about Paladins of Heronius, the Glaives, and I was playing a Paladin of Heronius. Thankfully, I was killed off long before that article went into print, so I could maintain deniability, but it looked a bit sus. It's like, oh god, well, I've written this prestige class for me. So in some ways, that policy did seem sensible, although at the time I was miserable.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I think we were the only triad that was enforced on.
It wasn't really enforced. Who was going to come and get us by then?
Well, that's true.
You know, the RPGA UK disintegrated sort of mid through our tenure, and we were left
Oh, wow.
the only ones in charge.
Yeah,
well, that's a minor
for that
story.
particular era. Yes.
Wow.
We were kind of left. We were kind of left as like last men standing. You know,
It's like
in
look to your
room.
defenses sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was the only original carryover from the RPGA into the group here.
Yeah, you were the continuity.
Wow.
I was the continuity.
Continuity triad member.
Stuart, how long were you a triad member for? You said year 2 to how long?
Apparently till 2005, because that was when I was a PhD student by that point, and I had a conversation with my supervisor, which went, you can either write Dungeons and Dragons or you can finish a PhD, Stuart. And I went, which one pays more money?
Yeah.
So I finished my PhD, and I had to. Then I got a job in the real world, well, in academia, somewhere near the real world.
The real world.
No, it definitely
really
isn't. But it's a nice world, though. You know, and I basically had to step back a bit, and you know, by the time I was kind of settled down, the campaign was winding up. So I kind of went, oh, it's a shame. Oh well.
Simon, how long?
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. I was active till 2006, at which point I went, oh, I can't do these stat blocks anymore.
Right. Yeah, the big stat block change around that time for 3.5 too, as well. Simon, how long were you triad member? I missed that. You went from 0 to when?
Well, I went from 0 to 2005.
Another 2005 or so. Somewhere out there, it sounds like there's some missing Onnwal triad members for years 6, 7, and 8. And we should find them for a future show to find out about Onnwal's conclusion,
yeah,
you know, and whatnot. And that could be a future show. But Creighton, how did you get into Greyhawk? How'd you get into Living Greyhawk? And how did you get into Raging Swan Press, I believe it is?
Well, I mean, getting into gaming, I guess a bit like Paul, I started when I was about 10. My dad had bought the basic box set because he thought it looked interesting, put it on the shelf and forgotten about it completely. Then my American cousin visited and just saw it and said, I've got this game we can play. You don't need a board. I'm like, you don't need a board? You know, weird. Anyway, so he played this, he ran this module for me and my sister, and we had to battle the Black Prince. but obviously no,
Black
no
magic.
sort of fantasy tropes there at all. He decapitated my sister, but I did survive, which is
That's awesome.
so I did survive, and I just, hooked from then onwards. I went to the same shop, I think Paul said Hamleys, to get some mythical stuff. I got my first White Dwarfs there.
Great magazine.
Bought Greyhawk, bought the original Greyhawk box set, and I remember 1983, 84, Forgotten Realms came out. Was that about
85.
or 86, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I remember buying that as well and thinking, this is really, really good, but it's so detailed. And then
The gray box with the black horseman on.
No, it's the box with
Rider?
the woman and the guy like fighting horse to horse, right on the front.
Right,
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But it was really
That was a
detailed.
great
I loved it, but it was just too much. The too much stuff. I quite like kind of, madly creating, as it were. So I dived straight into Greyhawk and started just picking up absolutely everything I could find, all the old modules and hunting down old dragons and that kind of stuff. And just that was where my love of Greyhawk came from, basically.
I feel it would serve you later, Creighton, quite well by the sound of it.
Absolutely.
Say again, sorry?
It's a skill that you use later on and going finding all these old articles, things.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, I found it very useful, yeah.
Like the Indiana Jones of Onnwal.
But interesting, and Paul, I also wrote a letter. Well, I found out about Living Greyhawk on an old Greytalk chat one Friday morning, because they were always Friday morning our time.
IRC.
Coming at the end of it at
Yeah, it was
sort of 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning.
Thursdays.
Yeah, it was Friday morning our time. And
Yeah.
someone started saying about this Living Greyhawk. I was like, what's that? How do I get involved? So I think I wrote or emailed the RPGA thinking, perhaps I might be able to get involved, if I'm lucky. Got an email back saying, congratulations.
Speaking of that,
Congratulations, you're now in charge.
Yeah, well, kind of. Well, with Simon and Sean. Yeah, and then we met.
Absolutely. And, a little while later, it was true of everything. Really.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, thanks to Les Oblivion Seeker, this is a Paul Looby, Creighton Broadhurst compilation of posts. Oh my God.
I'm in there too.
And Stuart, so I'm going to hit. One of them scares me. It says Doom Grinder. I'm not sure if I'm going to touch that one, but
I think you'll be pleasantly
oh,
surprised.
it's okay.
Yeah.
What's that a compilation of?
Of article submissions and
Mysterious
stuff. Yeah,
places.
I want at the end. Let's go. I want to go over a couple. Some of these are huge to my campaign, and I just wanted to say that thank you, Les. I know it's outside the Onnwal discussion, but really some fantastic works here that we should give some mention to on there. Just noting. And some Sam Weiss's, I recall, Les says as well in there too. So yeah,
Sam Weiss, Peter Schleipen, and Eric Mengi has one of those as well.
Great, and Eric's wonderful too. Eric's on the show all the time.
Yeah, and Eric did the Greyhawk Grumbler, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
As well. Wonderful
City of
things.
Greyhawk. That was year 8, year 9, I think.
Yeah.
Campaign ended in 8, so yeah.
The
7.
Coming towards the end of the
Articles
campaign,
come about because the Living Greyhawk Journal was either finishing or had finished at that point. I'm a bit fuzzy on that detail. Or was it just...
So Jay did a show a couple months ago with the Living Greyhawk Journal issues, 1 through 5, and we ended up getting both Mona and SRM on for it to talk about how it came
Paul and
to
I
be.
were in the audience eating popcorn.
Yeah, that was good fun. So Jay, I know you're itching to dive into on-wall specific questions.
So give us the gist of how the campaign went. Like, was it a fight against the Scarlet Brotherhood? What happened? In year, starting in 2000, 2001 onward, and did that change? Like year 4, we're going to go a different direction, and we noticed that happened in a lot of different locations depending on who took over. What was the strife in Onnwal?
It was pretty much on the surface, at least, the Scarlet Brotherhood were the main antagonists.
Okay.
For the full duration of the campaign, but there was a lot of other stuff going on in the background as well. So Creighton wrote the first module, which was Escape from Scant, where if you chose
I looked into this. I wrote the first 2 or 3, and then you wrote the next one, didn't you?
Escape from Scant, which was the module where you were supposed to, and I say emphasis on the word supposed to, escape from Scant.
Yes.
You were supposed to, or you could just go back to the Scarlet Brotherhood and go, we found an escape tunnel.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
that apparently did happen with at least one group.
it did. Yes. So I think the first Onnwal module was a 2nd edition one, wasn't it? I wrote something as a
It
precursor.
was yours, yeah.
Shadows
Shadows
Under
Under Scant.
Yeah.
It was a prequel.
Yeah, that was run in 1999, and then 2000 was Escape from Scant, and then To Catch a Traitor, and then your Glaives module came out. Hunters Hunted, I think.
Sorry?
Was it Hunters Hunted?
Hunters Hunted was the Knights of the Chase module that I did. You know, I was going to do a series.
Oh, Knights of the Chase. Oh, I love that.
I was going to do a
Yes.
series. There were 3 orders of knighthood in Onnwal, one of which I never got to. There was the Glaives, which were erroneous. There was the Knights of the Chase were around because they didn't like the Scarlet Brotherhood putting people in chains.
Weird.
It seemed to be something that they were against. And there was also the Fellowship of the Coin, who were like the Zilchin. I guess they were almost paladins of Zilchin.
Oh, I love that. Oh.
We never really got to them. They were always around, and basically, they were basically just like player characters. They did stuff for money,
But like Zilchis is what, lawful neutral. So if you have the paladins, their job would be to protect the economy.
Yeah, they're a bit like
merchants, protect markets.
Like Superman stands for truth, justice, and
that's
the
neat.
American way, which is kind of capitalistic. They were more of the American way kind of paladins. Right? If that makes sense.
That would be lawful evil,
I haven't
Stuart.
insulted
That would
everybody in
not be
the
lawful good.
They were. You didn't have. Well, we were kind of putting in. There were lots of options for not lawful good paladins in 3rd edition, anyway, like holy liberators and things. I'm sure there was something that fit the Fellowship quite well.
Sure.
Trade, but yeah, they like guarding caravans and making sure trade happens and prosperity and things like that. So
It's a neat idea. So
that's a
with the Scarlet Brotherhood as the big bad, did you guys inherit? Now, Gary Holian has said he wrote the Onnwal section in the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer, and he said he was not given a lot of space for it. Did you use any canon NPCs? Like, was there any other source book other than the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer? Like, obviously in DK, we had I Use the Evil, and there was the Marklands, and there was all the other supplements. Did Onnwal have another older canon source book?
Right there. Yeah.
We had that one. Yeah, that was pretty useful. The Scarlet Brotherhood.
Yeah, we used that.
Oh well, duh. Okay.
Yeah. We just had.
And did you have the NPCs in your region, like from slavers or anything else like that?
We had Kurani.
Oh,
I think was the only named.
Kurani,
yeah. She was.
Which one was that?
She was the overseer of Onnwal. I think she's named in From the Ashes, or if she's not, she's certainly in the LGG.
I'm almost positive From the Ashes.
Yeah, she was in From the Ashes. She was mentioned in The Adventure Begins, because that's where the rebellion in Onnwal actually started. Was The Adventure Begins by Roger E. Moore, who you had on the show. I've watched that episode yesterday.
Thank you very much. 2.5.
Doing my homework.
That in there, Greyhawk 2.5.
Yeah, and so we had Gian Destron, who was the son of the assassinated Sec, and we had Rachel Chert, the rogue that goes all the way back to Isle of the Ape. Where he was a pre-generated character who looks French. He's got a little beret on, and it's very cute.
Oh, yeah.
Eridan's going to be so mad.
Very good thing.
He's already insulted me in the chat, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, he was calling your accent into doubt.
No, he thinks I'm English.
He's always insulting people in Cannon Fire, right?
It's not just me then, thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's wonderful. I feel like I've adopted a contrary Frenchman, and he should just come over, and he's now part of the family. He can just disagree with every decision I make.
So it sounds like the PC's job was to fight the Scarlet Brotherhood oppression in Onnwal?
Primarily.
Yes.
And they would do that by freeing slaves or attacking government centers. Why don't you talk to us at a high level about the plots?
By the time you got to 591, most of the places on that map were free. It was mainly Scant and the surrounding countryside that the Scarlet Brotherhood held.
They had bits in the Storm Coast a bit. If you go push up a little bit there, I think that we started initially in Soren Hill. We developed that Soren Hill as sort of our, which is over on the right hand side of the map there, under the red tower.
Up high, Jay.
Up high. There we go. Right in the
red
center.
tower there.
And I think the first couple of years, it kind of went in we had a 5-year plan. We actually have the document somewhere. That by year 5, the crescendo of the campaign would be the liberation of Scant. So we had to we'd string out the war for 5 years, but make it interesting. So we kind of had vague
Yeah.
3-act structure, which was, they'd haven't, we'd introduced the Scarlet Brotherhood. Why are they bad? Blah, blah, blah. They'd do well against them initially. And then we sort of threw in an Empire Strikes Back thing in about year 3. Was it year 3? Where the Pomarj got involved. Tarash Mak had a troublesome warlord called Jedorek, who he decided to send with an army across on Scarlet Brotherhood boats from Blue across to Onnwal, and they suddenly show up in I think it was a special or an interactive.
That's right, yeah. And
suddenly it was like from going forward and having momentum going forward, suddenly it was like retreat, where all these orcs come from, because they'd been fighting hobgoblins and Amidio tribesmen and Scarlet Brotherhood overseers at that point. It allowed us to add some variety to the game. Then I think Tarash Mak tried to assassinate Jedorek because he was troublesome. That's the whole reason he'd been sent to Onnwal. But the PCs foiled that and basically presented the evidence to Jedorek, and Jedorek goes, well, I'm screw this, I'm going back to the Pomarj to sort out this Tarash Mak guy.
Was Jedorek a canon NPC?
No, we made him up.
He was new.
Yeah, we made him up.
There was an interesting twist that I don't think ever the players realized, which was their greatest enemy, or the one that they thought was their greatest enemy, was actually a Scarlet Brotherhood member who wanted the Scarlet Brotherhood to fail in Onnwal because he was part of the noble faction. He thought the Sul nobles should take over the Scarlet Brotherhood again. So he was quite happy for the Curiani to lose the war. In fact, he might have been the one that let the players escape from Scant, Creighton. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think that was. I'm desperately trying to
remember
all the detail.
Yeah. He was actually on the PC side, kind of. I mean, he'd still stab them if they came up and for tea.
Yeah, because
why would if they wanted to come by for a meal, they were out of luck. But generally wanted the PCs to succeed. Yeah. But he was the public face of the Scarlet Brotherhood as well. He was like the one that lived in Bigby's tower and was, putting his feet up in Scant. And they were like, oh, he's so terrible. He was like, I sure hope those players don't foil us, because then that would embarrass my boss. And she got well and truly embarrassed. So how did we get onto that? Yeah. So he arranged to turn up in one of my adventures and say, that Jedorek guy, they're actually wanting you to assassinate him. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should tell them. He appeared as a woman in red because he's a wizard and he is an illusionist. So people thought, Sister Curiani's told us to do something. And did it for some reason anyway. He basically shot the Scarlet Brotherhood in the foot, but had plausible deniability by not actually being a woman. It was just being an illusion of a woman. And
in the book.
Yeah, there was a lot of wheels within wheels and intricate plotting that I don't think the players picked up on. But basically he wanted the Scarlet Brotherhood to fail, and he was quite happy when they brought in the Pomarj. He was like, "Damn, this kind of, we're starting to win. We need to do something about this." So he arranged for them to find out that this half orc was actually being sent to die by Tarash Mak because he was too ambitious.
Was the Tarash Mak stuff all behind the scenes? Because my impression was that he was probably one of the off-limit canon NPCs, right? He didn't actually show up in any adventures where he could have been attacked, right?
He didn't show up. That's why we had Jedorek, because he was, the Mexican non-union equivalent.
We could actually
bring in.
Wouldn't come out of his trailer. I think though that was a hook in the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer, wasn't it? That the Scarlet Brotherhood were trying to get Tarash Mak's men to join the fight in Onnwal. So we were just doing. It's
all Gary Holian's fault, as usual.
Yeah, it's all Gary Holian's fault.
Yeah,
we were just doing what we were only following orders. That well-known Scarlet Brotherhood.
Hey, Gary, a region that actually followed your instructions instead of killing the NPCs and going a different direction.
It'll never catch on.
It'll never catch
on. A lot of work.
But we also had then tensions inside the rebellion, because on one hand we had Chart and the Wreckers, who were the old Thieves Guild of Scant. They were kind of, peasant scum. And then you had the nobles who'd survived, and you had Gian Destron trying to sort of, keep everything together on top of this. So you had tensions between them. We had several adventures. I think I wrote one where the PCs actually they find some wreckers looting a village that had recently been liberated. And they go, well, they have the choice of, do you let them loot the people, or do you do something about it? So we introduced that because I think the intent was, at least in my mind, that after the liberation, as happens in many countries where you get this like war of liberation, you then get a civil war. as everyone kind of sorts out, well, who's actually in charge.
Brilliant.
Put that together. So we were trying to build in bits of that. There was some wheeling and dealing amongst the nobles. We had Gian marry a...
No, he didn't. He never got married.
He never got married.
Still single, ladies. He's still single.
He jilted one of the
He
provincial...
married her because he got her up the duff.
Yes.
With a very creepy child.
No, the child was fine. The child was then stolen by Rary.
And who made an evil twin out of her? No, wait, was it Rary or was it?
Was that not it? Am I misremembering?
No, it wasn't
Rary
Rary.
was
I think
involved.
we might be going too deep for
The
our
Scarlet Brother,
overview.
Scarlet Brotherhood stole the child that Rary wanted,
Right.
and there was an evil twin made of it in the dungeons below Scant, and that's what it was. The twin was creepy.
Right.
That's kind of cool.
That.
We got
I like
very,
that.
very elaborate plot lines.
Okay.
This is why we all quit at year 5.
I got out in year 2.
You scarred yourselves.
So the PCs are fighting against the Scarlet Brotherhood, and you've described this insurrection, and it reminds me, in the Bandy Kingdoms, we were fighting against Ayus, but it was much more chaotic and demons, and you know, there was no overarching rebellion leadership really until year 3, 4, or 5. Who was leading the fight in Onnwal? The PCs, or was there this Scarlet Brotherhood guy in the background? Who was telling the PCs what to do?
I think that changed on a module to module basis, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were quite splintered, for want of a better phrase.
But in general, it was they were fighting for the rebellion. So but it could be you could be on the Gian Destron sort of noble side, or one of the nobles, or occasionally it was like the Raycall Chart side, and then there was tensions within the wreckers because people, they're thieves, so some of them wanted to get rid of Raycall Chart. So there was it kind of depended from module to module, and that was done deliberately because we wanted the PCs to be sort of picking a side within the rebellion, with a view to then doing the civil war. It's like, well, what side are you on? Like, have you gotten all your meta org stuff with the nobles? Do you have your meta org stuff with someone else, some other organization?
So you could form you could form an adventuring party, which we call war companies. We try to get away from D&D slang as much as possible. Thieves guilds and things, we were kind of like, well, the wreckers, they're scum. They're not a guild really. So you could form what was called a war company, and you could have a patron, and that could be one of the nobles, or it could be someone from the Raycall Chart faction.
Could be a church.
Yeah, or your church. Yeah. And I think we had one war company per sponsor. So once that sponsor was gone, no one else could have that sponsor.
Oh, that's neat.
So as the adventures went on, the characters would, encounter such and such an NPC. Suddenly that person would be taken as the company war sponsor for something. So you had some, we had some relatively famous companies that were sponsored by local nobles. So like From the Ashes, there's the Breakers. There's a mention of a war company called the Breakers.
Yeah, they're in Greyhawk City. Yeah, their adventures in Greyhawk City. Yeah.
They went back to Onnwal in 591 because we needed every NPC we could get. They were. We needed.
Well, that's a very neat idea. Did you guys have a meta structure for these war companies where they gained access to equipment, gear, prestige classes, spells?
That's what we would love
the time unit.
Love to see that stuff next time.
So
we'll go a deep dive in a future show.
Simon's got some wonderful stuff that he showed us yesterday on.
Oh, great!
Cool. The idea was you could have got to year 6 and you'd have all this influence with the nobles, and then if you'd went, well, I want to fight for the wreckers, that influence would all potentially be gone.
Evaporate,
Right.
So you either had to pick a side and stick true to it, or you would pay. You wouldn't pay in physical money terms, but in terms of your influence, you would be severely diminished. And actually, that could be quite dramatic. You had a nobleman who you thought you trusted, and maybe I was going to have one of the rulers have a massive alignment shift because she was getting in with the Alicents.
Oh yeah.
Because that was the one that the most popular nobleman was Duchess Silema, who was the ruler of Sorn Hill, because that was their playerist area in the first couple of years. That was kind of the player zone. That was where all the fighting took place. And she was a young, willowy noble, very beautiful. Gian Destron got her pregnant, and then because there was a scandal, because it turned out her father was in with the slavers, which was from an old Greyhawk module where it was just nobles and Onnwal were working with the slavers. This scandal got out because a war company found his ledgers, because he was the kind of guy that liked to keep detailed minutes of all his
crimes,
slavery stuff. So this became public knowledge, and Gian Destrin suddenly called off his engagement to her. But then there was an interactive, wasn't there? For that? Yeah, this suave nobleman from Alyssa, this ambassador, suddenly became really important in her court. And I would have had it that eventually they would have got married, and he was slowly turning her into somebody that maybe that adventuring party wouldn't want as their sponsor. But then I'm evil, and I like to pick at scabs and do things like that.
Yeah, we started getting the Alyssans involved, and that was also a part of something was happening with the Splintered Sons, with Neri and things like that. And we had Sundi sending an army, but they needed to make an agreement with Alyssa to send forces across Neri without there being a war about it. So Alyssa, we were also building up that Alyssa was trying to get its tentacles into Onnwal, taking advantage of the situation through the Royal Merchants Guild and the Zilchans and things like that. We're only here for trade and things like that. And they were slowly inveigling their way in.
Well, that was all very you. I remember you did a lot of research on the East India Company.
Very much inspired by that.
We were heavily inspired by things like Babylon 5, which had like a 5-year arc. And then there's an organization in that called Nightwatch, which starts off as a kind of nice, it's just a few extra credits, Then later on, it's like, tell them what your neighbors are up to, and it becomes full fascist by the end. So there would have been a lot of that. There was a lot of slow burn. There was a lot of deep stuff that was going on in the background.
Bab 5 had a lot of plot threads. You were paying attention to it going on in the background.
I wrote an adventure that ends with jump now. And I got away with it. They had to jump off of a cliff, basically, or get captured by the Scarlet Brotherhood. And apparently, everybody jumped, thank God, because they were saved. They were saved in the end. But there was one party, apparently, they were like, we've messed this adventure up so badly. This is the final end. Come on, guys, let's all jump. We're alive. Yeah, you just followed the scenario the way it was written. Thank God, we failed miserably.
With these plot arcs, did you coordinate with like the Finns or any of the other European organizations?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We did. We had a lot of people. Well, Sampo, who you had on, lived in the UK for a while, so we had a good coordination with Neri. The Sundi triad were often over. Peter and Mayadeva and Pierre Rudin. Van Ruden.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
we're trying to get Maya on a future show as well.
Yeah, they were great.
Wonderful. They were such a wonderful counterpart. Because they were very much the actual players were very much like the Sundians in the world. They were like, your Onnwal is so oppressive and horrible. The nobles are like bossing the peasants around. We're like, it's the medieval times. They were wonderful. They really played it really well. They were like, we have to bring freedom to this oppressed country. You mean against the Scarlet Brotherhood? No, against the nobles.
I'm gonna ask a really, really question I shouldn't go here with, but it sounds a lot like things that went on in British history a little bit. Is that true? A little bit? With all the nobles fighting and like War of the Roses and things.
I mean, that's more Europe and everywhere.
I know.
British. It's all over Europe.
I know. I had to ask.
Yeah.
No, I agree with Jay, because as an American, we don't have that medieval
limited
history heritage.
Yes.
Like I was in Ireland over the summer for my honeymoon,
which is cool.
and I saw castles. Here in the U.S., we don't have castles.
Right.
All over the place.
You've got medieval.
It's cool though.
I really want to go there. To that restaurant where they're all in knights and everything. That sounds brilliant.
Being noble in medieval Europe was a tough job, so to speak. And you could be killed or whatever, so to speak. And you had to kill in order to stay in power often. So it was harsh times, so to speak.
It adds a lot of depth to the game beyond just slaying monsters, which is really awesome. So
we did have some good monsters as well. The Scarlet Brotherhood made a lot of weird stuff, particularly in the first couple of years. I think it was like Monster of the Week. For people who hadn't, for some of the modules that we had that weren't written by the team, it was very much the Scarlet Brotherhood are going to try and attack somewhere with a werewolf or a half vampire, half whatever. We can throw templates at.
Yes, more templates.
So we had a perfect excuse to just throw random monsters in as well. They're trying out this new monster this week.
Well, I was actually wanting to ask, was there an overarching population of monsters, denizens? Did you have major dragons or anything really weird that would keep popping up? Like we had half red dragons in the Bandit Kingdoms. That's mostly my fault.
Our entire country was shaped like a dragon.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's called the Dragon's Head.
Yeah.
There were dragons in the deep history that we wrote.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any dragons. We
I
weren't
don't know
allowed.
Dragons.
I had a dragon.
Oh, okay.
Rohul Soldus was riding a Dream Stealer templated dragon at the end. Just to make it clear, he was the big bad. There was a guy in the Headlands riding a incorporeal dragon. I don't know how I got that through. It's because nobody had to fight him. It was just in the box text. And eventually you saw this army of things in the Headlands, and you were like, well, you were meant to think that's really bad. We should go report on that. But one party went, right, we're having that. We're going to charge.
Yes.
What's the encounter level for this? You died.
I remember fielding the complaint for that one, Stuart.
Yes, that was a wonderful. I think he's still bitter about it to this day.
I think I was stupidly at that convention while on the circle. I remember people storming over to me going, "Ah!"
It was meant to be like at the end of the scenario, you saw an army of bad stuff ahead, and you were meant to go, oh my god, we better tell someone. You were not meant to go, charged. And I think you could have run away. Running away is a lost art in Dungeons and Dragons. It is
so true.
I absolutely agree, and I think part of the problem is, and this goes into encounter design. Living Greyhawk had a very known mathematic formula for encounter design. There was a number of ELs, right? 3 times APL plus 6 that could be divided up into the encounters. I go into great detail in my book, $9.95 on Amazon.
There it is.
Everybody, get your books out.
Yeah, get your books out.
Get your books out.
That's right. We are pluggers on this show.
We made quite
Jay's
a few
Adventure.
books for
Onnwal. But so one thing we didn't do enough of, in my opinion, in the Bandit Kingdoms was untiered encounters until years 5 or 6, when my buddy Britt, who was on the circle, Britt Fry, after he was a BK Triad member, we just said there should be untiered encounters. DCs need to run away from.
We did use the word army in the box text several times.
Right.
but apparently the players did say, oh, we're all hard of hearing, and I was like, really? And we're all this and we're all that. And it was like there was a long drawn out appeals over this. That bit wasn't fun. People did get quite upset. They lost characters that they probably spent a lot of money and time on. But on the other hand, they charged an army. And it was a lot of, are you sure? Because it does. I'm sure it says in the scenario they can always run away if they are daft enough to attack, but they didn't.
Well, that was a subplot.
My hands are clean.
Yeah,
that did it.
That was another subplot that we had, that there was ancient evil in the heart of the Dragon's Head, in the Headlands. Ancient Flan evil that we sort of carried over into Bright Sands. That originated. The corruption that corrupted Sulm started off in Onnwal.
No, tell us more. What was this Flan ancient evil in the middle of Onnwal? Jay, you want to pull up the map so they can guide you?
You want to take this one?
Well, no, I remember there was the Dreaming Stone hidden in a deep glen, and it was all dream-based ancient evils that I think we talked about originating from, as we said the other day, he who was much overused in backgrounds. You know,
well, we had a backdoor alternative. It was a mixture of Tiamat and Thariston.
Yes.
Alluding to. Yeah, we never got to the stage where we actually had to quantify what it was. It was just bad.
It was bad. It was
bad
and horrible.
Do not go there. Do not go into the center of the Headlands.
It was meant to be
really
the
bad.
Eternal threat, wasn't it? You know, the threat that was always there, but
there was a multi-part artifact that we had called the Hideous Idol, and I'm sure there was a much more poetic name for it. One part of it was under scant, and that was each part corresponded to a draconic color, an evil draconic color, and the fire one was under scant. There was one, I think it was either black or something in the Headlands that one of the Flan tribes had. One of the parts was in the Bright Desert as well. I'm pretty certain there was a part of the artifact in the Bright Desert. I can't remember where all the other parts were, but that's why there was a link between them.
Check my files on that.
I'm just going from memory here.
Thanks.
But yeah, there were 5 parts to this artifact that no one should ever put back together. And I think we know where we were going with that. Someone was going to put it together at some, or at least get more than one part of it, which would also be really bad. So there was the second module that Creighton wrote was one called To Catch a Traitor, and the traitor, they didn't catch him, and he
I wrote that.
No, I checked.
No, Creighton. We wrote To Hunt the Traitor, which is the sequel where they also failed.
Yes, you're correct.
There was a sequel where they chased this guy into the headlands, and he was last seen in the company of a group of cannibals being escorted forcibly towards the center of the headlands. And he was coming back as the big bad because he was like their chosen one. They had a prophecy of a golden-haired savior, and guess what color the Scarlet Brotherhood's hair generally is?
Gold.
Blonde. So he was going to be also a big bad. And he's still running around technically in Onnwal canon, undefeated, or probably getting even more powerful and gathering parts of that artifact.
Did you say cannibals?
Well, okay, there's not a lot to eat. And maybe cannibals. We didn't describe them as cannibals in the module. They were black tattooed flan tribesmen. But cannibals is a much quicker way of saying that.
All right, so there's still indigenous. You had indigenous flans still in Onnwal. Okay.
We had 5 tribes, one with each color of the draconic, blue, red, green, white, black.
There you go, Anna. There's some development there for your flan.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Most of the flan were friendly-ish. I mean, they wouldn't seek you out, but there was the black tattooed tribe were really awful. They were like real throwbacks to the days of the Earthland.
Yeah.
They were awful. You did not want to meet these guys, and this chap did. But they didn't kill him, they just made him their king.
Okay. Wow.
They wouldn't do it to the player characters if they'd ran into him, I can assure you that. But it was originally meant to be a different NPC that became the chosen one, because the players didn't catch this one. He was supposed to die in the second module, but Creighton's fiendish genius, he managed to escape.
Sorry.
He became the chosen one instead, because he was like a nemesis for the players that they'd already fought.
The players there influenced the plot right there.
Yeah.
That guy should have been, a throwaway NPC, but he then became the big bad because of player actions.
He wasn't that
living Greyhawk.
Living Greyhawk.
Wow.
He wasn't that throwaway. He was the former mayor of Sornhill who had betrayed the city to the Scarlet Brotherhood. So he was a pretty awful person anyway.
But he was supposed to die.
He was supposed to die fairly early on so they could have an easy win, but he didn't.
Wow.
So
how many guess how many participants did you have in the entire campaign in this area?
We were incredibly popular. I think
we were
thousands.
Huge.
Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't say thousands. Multiple hundreds, I would think somewhere.
Not at one time. Not at one convention.
No. Jay, a better question, right? A better question would be convention attendance, because as triads, we wouldn't know if there were groups playing quietly at home who weren't being active on the social media of the time, the Yahoo groups 20 years ago, or our websites, like the Bandit Kingdom's website had ability for people to connect, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. Patrick will correct me if he's in the audience still. But so when you guys had conventions, or I assume you had interactives on the Saturday nights, how many tables do you think you guys would run at your biggest shows?
So I think some of the Gen Con UKs were getting, I remember, was it the wedding interaction in London, the second year in London?
Yeah,
got at least
that was a big one.
20 plus tables.
Yeah, because I remember that we had a whole dining room set up. There were at least 20 tables for that, I think.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And we'd be running slot after slot. People would just play. People would just play Living Greyhawk non-stop.
Yeah, even 4 tables at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
We would run off our feet all the time.
The age-old problem of not enough modules all the time, didn't we?
And we were doing 8 a year.
Yeah.
Which to me, looking back on it now, is insane. It was too much content, for unpaid volunteers to be keeping up with.
You'd have to pay me now to do something.
I was mostly coordinating a lot of stuff behind the doors where everybody else was in the front, if you know what I mean.
You are our archivist and tech chap.
I'm our archiving, maintenance, screwing it together person. Yeah.
I think, as I recall, if you look back through all our modules, certainly for the first 1 to 4 years, there was quite a small number of people who were actually writing modules on any kind of regular basis. We had 2, 3, or 4 stalwarts, and other people who'd be like, yes, please write a module for us.
This is live.
Yeah.
Because at the time we just couldn't keep up with the demand because people were that keen to play Onnwal stuff. I mean, obviously that was more Paul's bag and Stuart's bag after 2000. But
we were supposed to get 12 modules in the first year, weren't we? Because that stretched 2 years. That was 2000 and 2001 was 591. So people got 12 modules. We didn't. We only got 8 because we were very late getting our modules.
Yes.
Our sanctioning modules and getting them back because of the way the differences between the RPGA UK and the US or rest of the world. You know, in the US, you went on the website, you ordered the module for your convention or whatever, and you got it. Whereas we were using things like the RPGA UK office would post you adventures like physically.
Oh God!
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
And,
Wow. Express, passenger pigeons, that sort of stuff.
The RPGA US ordering system 20 years ago was in its infancy, right? It was early development for online gaming that, you know, I'm not talking Roll20, I'm just talking the ability to download something and play it.
Yeah, yeah.
If you had to get it by post, and then someone might be able to photocopy it and distribute it, you know, to other judges or to the players, right? And hope that they become the next round of judges.
Yeah.
Right.
So what would happen is they'd sanction our adventures, put them on the site, which no RPGA UK member could access because they had a separate thing. The RPGA UK was almost like its own entity with its own rules and its own weird ways of doing things. And we were kind of trapped between these two conflicting organizations. So we'd have an adventure that was sanctioned, but none of us would have a copy of the sanctioned version.
Yes,
you know,
the
convention was the next day. Yeah, and there's like 80 people wanting to play. So
I think, to be fair, that did get a bit better when, certainly when Paul was on the circle because he was, you know, bang on site and he would sit at home slaving away every night. You know, you were, you know, prepping modules pretty constantly, as I recall. You know, you were obviously you were sanctioning stuff from all over the world. You know, Sunday, you know,
all over Europe. Yeah.
I
remember
the first couple of years were quite hairy though. The first couple of years,
I think you said at the time if everyone was as active as Onnwal, you wouldn't have been able to do it because there were so many modules.
Yeah, you'd send stuff out to. I'd get Triad. I still have letters from people in Spain who signed up to be Triad, and then that would be the last you'd ever hear of them. And you know that was kind of good because that would be another 8 modules coming in, and in possibly not great English. So. We were just able to kind of keep up with what we had. I think if and you know the Netherlands like Sunday and Neri were and Germany were not, you know, slackers in terms of getting modules out. So it was all of those, all of Onnwal. And that was about it. If we'd had France, it might have tipped, you know, might have broken.
I remember Simon as well printing modules and certs out for
continually.
Oh yes, absolutely.
You know, like we were printing stuff out the day before.
During some of the Gen Cons.
Simon was just
printers.
And actually print them out on site.
Yeah, we were always jumping out of the airplane and wondering if we had a parachute on the way down. Literally, that's how it felt.
I mean, we did have a bit of that in the US where we might not get the certs or the adventure record until the last minute before the campaign or whatever. But it sounds like you were experiencing a particular different hardship. And Splintered Sun's meta region technically was 8 regions, right? Like, so that workload is a different workload. The IU's meta region was only 5.
Yeah. Then we also had to run whatever the core events were as well. So Isle of Woe or Assault on the Vault or something like that. That was our job to run as well at the convention. So, you know, we were all very relaxed and, you know, not under any pressure ever.
It's a good thing they were paying everyone £50,000 a year, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what.
To be fair,
really should cash those checks.
You got your travel expenses paid in the first couple of years of the RPGA UK because they still had the model where they would send their people to a convention to run their stuff.
Yeah. In the US.
In the UK.
In the UK.
If you drove or took
train
a
tickets
train
and stuff like that.
Claim it back.
Gotcha.
from the RPGA UK office, because we have a slightly different perception of distance to the Americans. I used to think that going to England was like, oh god, here be dragons, I don't know where I am anymore. Whereas you guys are like, go to a different state to play a game of I want to go to Nairon, no problem.
It's only 800 miles away.
Yeah, right. I'd be like, 800 miles. By that point we'd be playing in like the Channel. Depending on where you start out.
Stuart,
we had a very different perception of distance and travel as well. Plus, we don't really have trains; we just have replacement bus services.
Now, Stuart.
we don't have.
You've never travelled in Amtrak.
I was just going to trains are better in the UK than here. That's for sure.
Stuart, when you enter Texas from Louisiana on Interstate 10, there's a sign that says like "Welcome to Texas, Corpus Christi, 863 miles." And that's still in Texas, on I-10. So yeah, we have a different perspective for distance. In Texas, we would go to Louisiana, which would be the Yeomanry, or we could go to Colorado. That's pretty far if you're in Houston, and even Dallas. But say in New England, you had Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, all these states with different regions. The Midwest in the U.S., you had Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, being various different states. I'm looking at the Splintered Suns. You literally had to cross the channel to go to Ekbir, which would be a different region.
Well,
or Nary.
It's not so bad these days because we've got the channel or the channel tunnel. You can get on a train and go there. And I suppose in some ways it was nice to have France being a different meta region because it meant the players could get over there. And where were they? The Baclunish West?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They were involved at VTF, yeah.
Yeah, so that put another meta region at their pretty much not that most unreasonable journey to make. Technically, South Africa was also part of Onnwal at one point, and that is like,
yes,
I don't,
it was because I have it as it was Dullstrand until 2003.
Yeah, but originally it's because the way the RPGA UK was the RPGA UK and South Africa
for a little while.
No kidding.
We might as well have added Mars as well. We could have had a colony on Mars and maybe Saturn or Pluto as well.
I don't know. I'd like to see the expenses if we'd flown to Johannesburg to do that. Cape Town.
I didn't know that. I have here Dullstrand was South Africa from year 0 to 2003, and then it was Switzerland from 2003 to the end of the campaign. Now who knows?
Wow.
I don't know.
Think early on
we had our own RPGA UK. We had our own polyhedron, and I'm sure polyhedron used to say things like UK and South Africa. I don't know. I have family in South Africa. It would have been nice to go visit them on expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
I'd have gone.
I'd
have packed my dice bag and got on that plane, or held onto the wing, or whatever.
So
I had a very good argument about RPG expenses. So I got into a problem about RPG expenses once because I think Sean Connor was telling me to claim for petrol, to go from my house to a convention, mileage. And I was saying to him, but Sean, I have a company car. As at the time I had a kind of a proper job, I had a company car. One of the gamers overheard me and complained to RPG UK because he thought the tribe members all had company cars.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. We had a running joke about that, didn't we, Paul? We'd go, charge it to the Pride account.
That's where all the money's going. The tribe members have what company
cars? We're giving me a company car.
The players would pay for conventions, right? But they weren't paying to play the adventures, unlike, say, Pathfinder Society, where I believe the dungeon master has to, pay the $5-10 or whatever it is.
The adventure for like $10. Yeah,
and that allows you to report the results, right? So at least here in Boston in Pathfinder Society 10 years ago, it's been a while since I've played. The players would all chip in $1 or $2 to the dungeon master, and they would get some sort of store credit as well, so that they would spend their money at the gaming store that the adventures are being run at. But in Living Greyhawk, the financial cost of entry, other than saying buying every splat book, you could really do Living Greyhawk if you just had the player's handbook and that's it in 3rd edition. But all the cool stuff that came out in the splat books, you theoretically had to own the book and bring it with you to the table. But you weren't paying, and there was no money in Living Greyhawk. It actually should have been monetized. They should have taken the best adventures, really clean them up and publish them.
Yeah.
They could have done a best of Living Greyhawk, best of Onnwal, best of Living Greyhawk,
Yeah, they should
the Banded Kingdoms, et cetera, et cetera. And these things might have sold a couple thousand copies or a couple hundred copies. I don't know. Who's it? Ben, who did the book, Slaying the Dragon. He's gone into AD&D sales numbers quite a bit if you follow him. And so I don't know how well any of these projects might have sold, but looking on it now, I've actually pitched to Chris Perkins. I'm like, hey, let me do a 5e adventure path, The Rise of IUs, and I'll base it off the Living Greyhawk events and the Banded Kingdoms, High Folk, yada, yada, yada. They're just simply not interested in that kind of project, unfortunately. So it's a shame that what happened in Onnwal is going to be lost to time as we all age out, so to speak, unless we have projects like my book or these discussions in these shows.
I did 10 years ago put together a website called the Onnwal Project, which is a copy of the Irongate Project. And that is still around. I've lost the website, but the Wayback Machine has it. So
didn't someone write up a summary of the Onnwal campaign at the end of the campaign? I thought someone wrote up a kind of a what actually happened.
Well,
is that my mismemory?
That's good because I have no idea what happened.
So Antiquitous found this. This looks like it's at live. Onnwal Gazetteer, because I just checked this and it's
this seems like
and they're doing adventures now. Look, session 25 and 26 by Elric, September 12th. Oh, Elric is on the community, isn't he, Gary? September 12th, 2022.
Wow. Well, that's what we wanted, really. That's
right, Gary. I think Elric is either in Greyhawk Online or he's on Cannon Fire. I'm almost positive. So
we get 20% of everything, don't we?
But look, I mean, it's all here.
Of nothing.
You're all credited here. I see all your names here.
Yeah, that's this. Probably put in PDF form. It's the Onnwal Gazetteer.
Yeah, it looks like somebody's
crappy old version.
Somebody's made the PDF into a web page, which is nice.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this looks like it's going on right now, which is great. So
that's awesome.
Shadows Court.
That sounds like a great campaign. Can I play?
No,
I might have a slight advantage over.
No, you're not allowed. You signed the paper 20 years ago.
I mean,
wow,
that
was a very long agreement I signed, wasn't it?
Well, that's why we used the blood, right?
Yes, the blood that disappeared on the parchment when I signed it. But
if Wizards of the Coast ever gets mad at me again, they can't actually ever find my Triad contract agreement because I never signed it and I never sent it back to Chris Tulloch.
Oh, I would imagine they would have lost those pieces of paper a long
oh my gosh,
ago.
look, I'm even linked here. Jeez. Okay.
There you go.
Greyhawk Online, Wiki, Cannon Fire, Lurker Zumba, Ada Meyer, All Dragons, AD&D blog. Watson. All right, that's cool. I mean, so this is.
You're gonna have to send me this link. I want to visit.
Alex, can you relink this, please, in chat? Antiquitous is the one that found it.
This person has amazing taste. I want to say that.
It's Shadow.
There it goes. It's up. I just put it up. Yep. So okay.
Oh wow.
No, it's good to
see.
On
Safeton as well.
Yeah, you had some other things.
That's what I kind of hoped was that this stuff would have a life beyond the Living campaign. It wasn't just for Living Greyhawk. It was for anybody who wants to play an Onnwal.
Well, and thanks to Anna, we can see it now on her amazing maps.
Yeah,
the map is beautiful.
I must say that Onnwal was the most difficult of all the areas to map because there was so much detail and it's all crammed in there. So it's if there's any. Oh, sorry. Go on.
I have bad news for you though. I think Scant is now a ruin.
Or
is it?
Living Greyhawk, everything's a ruin. Just kidding.
We didn't kill any NPCs, but I think we did blow up Scant.
I kept it because I felt it was so iconic. So I did. It was the same thing with Crit Wall and stuff. I did it. Took some artistic things around here. I took some artistic license here and there. Yep.
Guys, Anna is the most well-read Living Greyhawk person. She has read more or all of the adventures.
Yeah, at least read
her map.
Yeah.
Probably the only person on the planet
who's actually read them all.
Yeah. And Onnwal, the gazetteer, and Paul, you sent me. I think you sent me first like a pre-version, and then you later sent me the first like official version, and that was like a gold mine to me. And there were some maps and sketches and stuff. And damn, I read it back and forth, and the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer. And this area is so jam-packed with stuff. It's like crazy. If there's any region that really deserves a more detailed study, it's this area. So it's been high on my list. And now when I got contact with you guys again, I'm definitely want to put it high on the list for a kind of that really cool, like I do with Shieldlands now. So we put like a map that is like 5 or 10 feet per pixel or something like that. So that's something I really want to do, because it's a cool area. It's central to the setting too, geographically and politically. It has many ties to a lot of other areas. So it's kind of a cool place. Even if you start out somewhere else in Greyhawk, it's easy to get to. You can have like a journey through over the ocean from almost anywhere in the setting and end up there, so to speak. So
thank you, Oblivion Seeker.
I tried to do this from 2000 2005 myself, so I do have some stuff I can send you.
Oh,
yes.
awesome.
Simon was our mapper.
I'm the mapping person.
The ultimate compliment I think that we got was, you know, the Paizo Greyhawk maps. If you look at the Paizo Greyhawk map and you look at Onnwal, there's not just Scant, there's Kildare, there's Longbridge, there's Thornhill.
That one didn't come
Eric Mona made those effectively canonized what we did. That was the highest compliment I think you can get, is to be actually in a published product. So kind of all canon.
I remember that at the time. I was extremely excited.
Yeah.
And they came out, I think it was about 2000 or a little bit after. I think they came out when Paizo took over Dragon and Dungeon magazine. And
Oh, he said, you know, well, at one point he had to tell us it's not called the Living Onnwal Journal. Please stop sending us Onnwal articles. We only have one region, you know.
Well, I mean, he was the editor. He could just say no.
Well, he did. He turned down our first gazetteer. When he was running the RPGA, we sent in our gazetteer, and he said, A, it's way too long, and B, he said, this is hilarious to me now, that he said that our political stuff was too simple, and that may have been a reg rag to a bull to you, Paul, because I think we only had kind of 4 or 5 noblemen at the time, and you went, okay,
right then.
Another 500.
We put all those adventures there. I sure. Yeah, I was going to make them all look pretty at one point, but I realized there's a lot of adventures. It would take me forever. So I think that may have died on the vine. But you can get the original Gazetteer, and I put together a new one with all the it's kind of more of a Marklands type overview. So it does have some of the GM level information on that site as well. I need to play around with it again. I'm not finished with it.
And Rich Longitalis has a list, and I helped him flesh out a lot of the missing LG modules on that. We're just waiting to get it up on and update the one on Cannonfire. But there is an updated one. I think we've got nearly all the authors and the blurbs for the sort of the official cores. Some of the interactives and the specials we couldn't trace down with descriptions for.
I think I've got a complete set of all the core stuff. If you're looking for core modules or blurbs,
Les, if you want to link this,
we got the cores.
Link this in chat, please. You can, Les. I mean, this Onnwal project, because it's this would be.
I should probably just put it back up.
Yeah. Well, it's really.
Oh, please do.
It's
that
nice.
will be awesome.
It's amazing how much the Wayback Machine has saved.
But websites were small and uncomplicated back then, so it was easier. Today's sites are much more difficult. I think
it's small and uncomplicated, like the person that made it.
It's really cool.
I just didn't want all this stuff to die on the vine, if you see what I mean.
Right.
So I got some questions from the audience I want to hit here, and that is Big Mac, you fellow UKer. Did you, when you ran special events, did you ever go into Ireland or other? Was it all throughout the UK and Ireland, or
We tried to spread them out. We made an effort. I can't remember while I was back here whether we ran anything special in Ireland. We did run some specials in Scotland. We had Summer Weekend in Onnwal. I think, was that in Aberdeen?
No, that would have been a Hidden Fortress. All the weekend in Onnwal were Hidden Fortress. They would be in Nottingham.
All right, okay.
Nottingham in the.
I remember there being some special event up in Aberdeen anyway.
We did something for Dracon, I'm sure. But we
That was
definitely
TrackCon. That was it.
we
Yeah.
definitely did
Downloading
something.
this.
We definitely did something special in Ireland because your GM Des pulled out all
Yeah.
the stuff. We ran some good stuff at GaleCon. We made some.
I
real
wasn't
friendship.
there. I was only there for one GaleCon
We were
when I was
definitely
back.
there because we all went out. We all went out in the town. We went out and had a really nice steak at somewhere called Captain America's.
That's
all
right,
sticks in my- Can't remember anything about the games, but the steak was amazing.
See, that's why I don't remember. It's all been washed away. In
Well,
the
you see, that was
post-con.
quite a
drinking
big
fest.
deal for me because I'd never been to Dublin before. I was like, this is amazing. You actually got to see some of it before I saw the hall of a convention for 3 days.
Yeah,
Mm.
that was
Which
the
is
issue.
pretty much like every other convention, but nice. I also
Yeah.
remember at GaleCon there was a woman who wore a chainmail bikini with a gem that flashed, and all the players would stop talking when she walked past. GM, they would all be like, oh, and you'd be like, oh, you know. I mean,
Meanwhile, back in Onnwal.
thankfully, I'm not affected
Go
by
figure.
such enchantments. I was like, oh, just carry on with the game, guys. We've got to
It's
finish.
the game.
Yeah, so ignore the attractive, beautiful women. Oh, anyway.
So yeah, we made an effort to spread things out though, because I think Living City was mainly based sort of in southern England, and even just getting stuff in northern England and then up into Scotland. I don't know about Wales. I don't know if we had anyone really for Wales, but I mean, we had a point of contact for Ireland with a couple of them to basically go to all of the cons in Ireland and, you know, run a few tables of Living Greyhawk for people that were willing to play it.
Well, that's
That was
where we had
Max
the
Craft,
Max
wasn't it?
Craft Award for being the person who ran Escape from Scant the most.
Most,
That guy was
yeah,
a
he ran
trooper.
that.
You know, he
module
ran
a
that
lot.
module because that was the
Yeah.
one you always started with, because you started off with no equipment because it was a Creighton Broadhurst module. It was very old school. You got thrown down a pit by the Scarlet Brotherhood and given a torch. See, they're not
That was
bad.
introduction.
A torch. Well, that's good.
And then you
think
Could be
about
worse.
Then you found the tunnel that led out of Scant, and you did not go back and say to the Scarlet Brotherhood, "We found a tunnel."
Uh,
To which they went,
bum, bum, bum.
"Excellent, you're a loyal slave, but we're going to have to kill you anyway."
It worked.
That
Oh, wow.
actually, that did happen, didn't it? What they got killed
At
by
least
the-
once.
People did
Yeah.
go back, yes. And that was probably our fault for not explaining the situation back. as
We
well
should
as
have just
could
had an
done.
earthquake that
I
blocked the
mean,
way
being
back.
thrown in a pit with a torch was supposed to be the hint. You know?
These guys are lovely. They gave us a
They're bad
torch. They're
people.
concerned about
That
our
actually
safety.
does. It comes to a
The
point,
player's
actually,
guide is
that-
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to download it from
Oh.
that site, so everyone can download it from that link
You guys
site.
clearly had access to the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer template. Or
Oh,
something.
it's
Yeah, it was in
Oh,
Richards,
no,
I
we didn't,
think.
we
It
didn't have anything.
is-
We didn't have
So
anything
we
quite
had-
as
we-
clever as that.
112
So-
pages. Holy jeez.
So we didn't have access to the Living Grail template, but
didn't we?
Simon built it. But we did have access to the side graphics from The Adventure Begins, I think.
Begins, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yep,
which
so,
we
so I
used.
set the lot, yes.
Or was that from the
Okay.
IVID? Did we do an IVID as well? We did an IVID as well.
Yes,
didn't we?
yes, I've got it here actually. I was
Oh, yeah, we
gonna-
did. We did do a nice. That was purely for
That-
internal
yeah.
use. Though.
Nice.
Purely for internal use.
So, Si, if
Oh,
you
that
open
one
that,
spread
if you
wildfire. I
open it,
got it
Simon,
early.
and
Yep.
show them the side graphics. Those are the side graphics from IVID the Undying.
They
and
are
Mark.
indeed. Yep, here we go.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
saw that in a PDF. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
this
Got
was
one of
this
those.
was this was a bit of a frustrating thing because you guys wrote this and the RPGA UK, as I said, they did their own polyhedron. They were like, we could publish this and it would be a bit like our version of the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer. So they said, we're going to take this. You don't give it to the players or the other writers, and we'll publish it. But being the RPGA UK, they went away and did nothing with it for years. And then,
Absolutely.
and with the person who wanted to do this was a chap called Ian Richards, who was at that point the head of the RPGA UK.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, we got a message from the head of the RPGA UK saying, you can't do this. It's full of all this copyright graphics. And that was by the head of the RPGA, a guy called Ian Richards. So he originally had this great idea that we should make this and sell this to players. And then when he got promoted, he went, oh, we can't actually do this.
Maybe we can't do that.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of that was not the first time something like that ever happened to us in running this campaign, where the left hand
No.
wasn't talking to the left hand.
Yeah,
Never
but,
mind
yeah,
the right
we
hand.
were all kind of tremendously keen kind of amateurs who just love Greyhawk, and
Yeah.
then you've got all the head officey stuff, you know,
Yeah.
where there's a lawyer going,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Eric and SRM both talk in great detail about while third edition is being developed, and Gary Holian has said this too, they're making the rules for third edition while Gary and Mona and et cetera are writing this. So there's no crunch in here. There's a few abbreviated stat blocks, fighter 15, cleric 4, whatever. But the RPGA just was not, I don't know. They just weren't, like you said, the left hand wasn't even talking to the left hand, let alone the right hand.
I guess they weren't in the design loop anyway in that instance.
Yeah. And in some ways, that's increased the longevity of that book, though, because you can now use it.
Exactly.
It's a great point.
So, and it's available as a PDF on
Drive-through RPG.
Absolutely.
That will pay for the Gary Holian retirement fund, I'm sure.
I bet you Gary would tell us it would not.
No.
It won't pay for that'll pay the
As
lawyers.
Anna likes to say, no one gets rich in RPG.
No, except the lawyers. They must be doing okay for themselves. Those lawyers that said no.
There's a select few who have done it full time and made enough to retire.
The panel remembers the Thorns of Tassoc. That was one of the war companies.
It was. I can't remember who they were sponsored by, but I remember the name.
I know they were in Oxford, I believe, weren't they? They were a bunch of Oxford players. Because when I moved to Leicester, they were like, "Do you want to come and GM for us?" And I went, "I'd love to. Just let me settle in for the next 3 years." We never quite managed it. But yes,
somewhere
Thorns of Tassoc.
Yeah,
they had their own website as well. It was all very organized.
Yeah,
Tassoc was one of the villages in Onnwal, wasn't it, Paul?
It was. Yeah, Simon has in his archive somewhere a list of all our war companies and who they were sponsored by, and I remember the name. I remember those guys and the name Thorns of the Tassoc.
Yes, I remember they didn't like Tarnidus the Prophet because were they the ones that jumped off a cliff? Maybe. Music story.
Very possibly.
That's right.
This wasn't a cliff you were meant to jump off of this fall off of this time. That was the other one.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I wrote. Yeah. We had a prophet of Falcon, who was converting Scarlet Brotherhood people to not be Scarlet Brotherhood anymore.
I like that.
Maybe you shouldn't be evil.
Which is handy because Falcon is the god of handling dangerous evil artifacts. We had one
archery and birds.
The air.
And I'm sure he also does something with artifacts. I thought you were being clever there, Paul. I thought one of Falcon's more obscure things is that he deals with protecting people from I might be wrong, maybe I'm misremembering that. I'm now going to Google it.
I can't remember at the moment.
We'd have to pull up the old deities book or something.
I might be wrong.
Talking about the war companies, I find that particularly interesting. We allow people to buy land in the Banded Kingdoms. We didn't really have these war companies because we ascribed to what we called the theory of six bozos. And the theory of six bozos is that adventures were only being done by six adventurers, like that there was a multiverse. So this group, is in their own timeline, and this group is in their own timeline. And then obviously interactives is where the multiverse came together, and all of a sudden there's a shitload of adventurers fighting the Iusians. The Iusians are like overwhelmed or whatever. But in general, for us, we had a low-level kind of campaign, a mid-level campaign, and a high-level campaign. So we had 18 bozos, but we called it the theory of six bozos to explain, well, this guy killed the dragon. These other 20 guys, they didn't kill the dragon. But I don't know. It's just a thing you had to wrap your head around, because you would sit at a table and you would have a cert that said, you killed the dragon. And then the other player would be like, no, I killed the dragon.
Oh, yeah.
A silly artifact of a living campaign.
Yeah. But the real dead dragon was inside all of us all along anyway.
Yeah. I have to give some credit, Stuart. I think you're right, because in the Falcon entry in Living Greyhawk guest here, it says that it's he's also the scholar of artifacts.
Oh,
yeah. You were right. This is something you did, Paul. This was deliberate.
Yep.
I'm sure I did it deliberately. Yes.
Nice.
Yep.
Oh, sure you did.
And how to negate their powers. So there is an artifact connection there. So you were absolutely right.
So he was going to be an important player in the war to come when this ancient evil awoke in the headlands.
That's actually ringing a bell, Stuart. Now that
and the PCs hated him because they thought he was a smug git because he knew.
Yeah, they did.
Wow, there's a lot of links here.
And so
it gives me an instant plot hook, because In the Iusian Bone Shadow, there's an NPC, Sunaferal Brightrose, whose job is specifically to go look for evil artifacts to give Iuse more power. So now you immediately have a reason for Falcon to be hunting this guy, or clerics of that's
and
really
he's a
cool.
super god, so he's kind of, I mean, he doesn't approve of the Scarlet Brotherhood, so it made sense for him to be around. He was like, you know, not all Sul are evil. That was a major theme of the campaign, you know.
Yeah.
We don't like racism and things like, you should judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their hair.
Or robes.
Or their robes.
Or robes.
Scarlet is a legitimate wardrobe choice.
Some other quickie questions from the audience. This one went deep and it was early, so I held it off. How did you approach the Onnwal? Was it more a thought of a medieval Euro Greyhawk with historical references that you threw in, or was it a fantasy inspiration, or a mix? That's a tough question.
Both. Yeah, probably a bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a big fan of, dare I say, kind of like realism in my fantasy games. So certainly, I think I remember. Well, you like the work you did on the East India Company, talking about subjects. You know, I know we did a lot of kind of deep diving to make Onnwal feel real, because we didn't.
Verisimilitude rather than realism, I think, is what we were going for.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic word.
Yeah,
That's a good word.
Yeah, cookie cuttery type thing. We wanted it to feel like you're actually in a, you know, quasi-medieval civil war.
And then we got some player characters who basically were shipped over from Sarbanar. Yeah.
But they got it. They got it. They got it, though. They bought into it.
My cleric,
to be fair to everyone.
And things like that.
Yeah.
Band-Aid the cleric was one of my favorite ones. And there was also there was somebody who thought he was lying over the Thundercats and just kept throwing his sword on the ground, and it got larger and larger.
Okay.
So we were
players going to play.
Right.
People like they came from Sarbanar and were like expecting Sarbanar, but they very quickly bought into the whole thing, and they really got into it.
There was a certain amount of Sarbanar was the living city. Our living city, which is a bit more comedic and Discworldy and a bit more bright. So you were telling me about your plot lines. I believe there's a Sarbanar plot line where somebody cast stone to flesh on an obelisk and went and ran away, and that was the kind of plots they dealt with. So it wasn't quite the same as the Dark War against the Scarlet Brotherhood with ancient evils in the headlands.
It's kind of funny, actually.
I mean, that all said as well, I think that the way we designed the campaign, at least initially, there were kind of two levels to it. There was the top level, just the fighty, and you could play just the fighty version. You know, I want to kill the Scarlet Brotherhood, and that's fine. Or if you wanted to get into some of the modules and follow some of the deeper plots, and if you would go into the interactive and that kind of stuff, you then get the lower level, you know, the deeper, darker level of the campaign. And I know that I remember listening to one conversation between Paul and Stuart where I was like, I've only been out of the trial for 6 months and I'm completely lost. It's what they're all about. So, I think I was driving you, I picked you up at an airport or something, and we were driving to the convention somewhere around Bristol. It may have been the Minehead.
Minehead,
They were chatting away about this bit of politics and that bit of politics, and I was thinking, I probably should have done some revision before picking them up from the airport.
You at least knew where you were going.
Because there was that much deeper level of all the interactions and the factions and of course the religions as well, which you did a lot of work on, Paul. Stuart did a lot of the knighthood, but Paul did a lot of the actual. It was a very complicated religious situation, as I recall.
Paul did all the heavy lifting. I just came along and looked good when I went, it's like a jar that he'd unscrewed most of it, and I just popped the lid.
No, that wasn't just me. There was a lot of people.
There was, but you were definitely attacking that lid a lot before I got to it.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna ask a downer of a question. How did it end? And how? What happened?
It ends in fire. It did actually end in fire. Well, the 5-year plot ended in fire. I'm very squishy on the details beyond year 5. We need to get the later people, but it ended with Scant being liberated. In fact, I have the interactive map.
Oh,
this is sideways.
Wow!
Wow! Look at that.
This is a lot of glare.
Wow!
But this was we had this stuck up. I'm actually struggling.
That's good. No, you're good right there. You're good.
You got it?
Yeah.
So this was the battle map for the liberation of Scant, and you can't quite see it, but there's little chalk marks drawn on where the various people did their stuff.
That's
And we had this
awesome.
it was like a 2-day or 3-day event at Gen Con UK 2005.
It was.
And it was multi-stage, and people would take, I think we had nearly individual missions, or
No,
people would
I
take
remember
on
writing them.
individual bits.
Yeah.
You
Like
wrote me back
special
in.
missions, sort of.
To capture the gates, capture the port, capture this temple.
I got you.
But there'd be very small mini missions, but
Mini missions, okay.
where each table would basically get something to do individually. Like they could say, well, I stormed the gates of Scant during the
That's
liberation.
exactly how we dealt with sieges in the Bandit Kingdoms.
That's awesome.
Right.
We took a lot of leave.
I'm glad
from
you still
the
got that.
guys.
Yeah, I think
That's
Paul, you should scan that, man. Get that scanned somewhere and put that get that on Cannon Fire or
I've got
something.
the original, but
That's
scanning.
awesome.
This belongs in a museum, Paul.
Yeah, that's a
It
great
is. It's
piece.
in my spare room.
Still got it.
That's a wonderful piece. So
But they definitely liberated Scant. It's very liberated. Perhaps
and
it's
then-
liberated now.
So the
Oh, yeah.
issue was that Sister Karani had found that bit of the fire artifact, the Hideous Idol, in a place called the Talmarith, which was this under city. Do you remember the Talmarith?
First appeared in Shadows Under Scant by Creighton
First.
Broadhurst.
So it was bringing it back right to the first
We
adventure
know
that
what
we
were
did.
doing.
Yes,
It
we
was
definitely
right
planned
there in
this
the
out.
beginning.
But all right, so wait a minute. You
She-
liberated it, and then it got destroyed.
So
It got
it was a doomsday device. So she had basically used it she wanted to lure the army of Onnwal into Scant and then basically incinerate the city.
It was what's called it's like the bit in Watchmen where I've already done my evil plan. You're too late.
Right. That's so.
'Cause we know
At
the
that
players-
point-
'cause if we don't do that, the players will thwart them.
Yeah. So
95% chance the players will thwart Sister
So the
Kira.
plan was, the
Yeah.
idea was, okay, first of all, it's a dramatic event. Okay, you've liberated the city, but you've also lost your capital. But then it set up Scant as a place that had to be cleared of sort of undead and all sorts of things that we could use it as a focus for adventures for the next couple of years, clearing out Scant, and people could claim bits of Scant that they could have they'd cleared. It also set up the Civil War because there wouldn't be a central location. There wouldn't be a capital anymore. So where did power go? Suddenly, the Scarlet Brotherhood is gone, our capital's gone.
Yeah, we're not even sure what the capital was after that. I thought it was
Nope.
Kildare. I would
It
assume
probably
Kildare
was. I don't know.
the
But,
capital.
well, see, no one in Onnwal was, because
Yeah.
suddenly, power is all sort of spread all over the place.
Did you say devolved?
And you all
Oh.
decided you had enough at that certain point, right? And then that was
Yeah.
the whole crew went on to other projects, or
I think for me, it was I wanted to make some money and work.
right? Understood. Understood.
I think it was similar for me. I still have my email that I wrote. SRM, he sent a very kind email back saying, "Look, I'm out, dude. Like I'm getting paid, and my day job was editing, and then I got paid for that, and then my night job was also editing, but I didn't get paid for that. So we'd seen it through to the end of the 5-year plan. That's what we signed up for. So that's at that point I tapped
Then
out.
somebody else has to come with new ideas, otherwise
It gets stale.
Yeah.
Simon's exactly right. So when Living Greyhawk started, they told you guys come up with a 5-year plan. That was pretty common for all the regions. But in year 5, they said, all right, come up with a 3-year plan. And that was the first hint that they already knew 4th edition was coming out in 2008 or 2009. And then they made the announcement at Gen Con 2007 that the campaign was ending summer of 2008, although the adventures would still be available through the end of the year 2008. So at that point, we did see a lot of triad turnover in various regions when they kind of saw the writing on the wall, or they had burnout, or they completed grad school, and started having kids and whatnot. This volunteer workforce is probably, I'm the RPGA, we're the Scarlet Brotherhood. We were all grinding away for free for the RPGA. The Circle members got a little stipend. It was a couple $1,000s according to Britt. Certainly nothing that you could live on, but it's a shame. It should have been, at least being a Circle member, should have been a full-time paid gig, and it wasn't. And I don't know that's the failure to monetize the campaign.
But I resent when
unfortunately.
you said that the RPGA was like the Scarlet Brotherhood. They would never have thrown us down a pit and thrown a torch for us to use.
Oh,
We'd have been down that pit in the dark. We would have make our own torch somehow out of the bones of the last volunteers.
And you'd have had to dig the pit first.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it was the second pit because someone else had already organized another pit to
someone
be
had
took
built
over
that
there.
They didn't tell us
And they
about
hadn't told
that.
the other person about that pit.
Oh, you're gonna have to fill that pit in because we can't use it.
Yeah, with Living City and whatnot. So we'll
They'll
need to
stop
get
the
in
Living
touch
City.
with the year 5, 6, 7, and 8 triad guys. Hopefully you can help me out with that.
We
And
have a list on the
Yeah,
Discord, your
yeah.
Discord, Casey,
Peter,
Oh, okay.
Peter Sleepen would
but
have
not
you there as
contact
well.
details.
I'm going to be. I'm always speaking my mind. I think, unfortunately, if you look at what happened in years 6, 7, and 8, our replacements weren't quite as able to write modules as we did. And if you look at years 6, 7, and 8 of Onnwal, there isn't actually a lot of module stuff. There is for year 6.
Oh.
My last module reads like a plea for help. At the end, there's like an end where it's like, and I'm out now, guys, but here's what should happen next in the end of my last year 6 Onnwal module. And then there's maybe one more module for that. I think there's a couple for year 7 and a couple for year 8. And I don't think any real traction ever came after year 6.
But I mean, there were people who had played and volunteered, and some of them had been on the Onnwal design team, which we should mention. There was not just the triads. We actually had a support team of people who were doing a lot of volunteering work. That we had points of contact in Scotland and Ireland. There was one guy just doing the web stuff. There was a guy managing the meta orgs. And they did, our volunteers did a tremendous amount of work. I think it's just when they kind of took on the triad thing and they got that full fire hose of, oh my God, we've got to run everything now.
Right.
And also,
I mean, it's not an easy ask. That's not an easy thing to ask anyone to do. And it was overwhelming.
There's nothing worse than writing a module, putting your heart and soul into it, and then having a convention load of people go, well, that was shit. You hate that. Oh,
you can't please.
You can't please
everyone.
So.
And sometimes we were under the gun. Britt and I would write an adventure in one weekend. And we would just have those bursts of creativity where we'd sit in the same room. We also were roommates at various points in our lives. And we would just crank out an adventure, and then we would edit each other's adventure real quick and then send it off. And other times we did the proper, here's the adventure. We've got months to think about it and to do it a better adventure. But
all right, I'm going to ask one or two questions here. All right, beyond from these wonderful publications, I have to know this one, Onnwal Mysterious Places. In the honor of Living Greyhawk, you destroy the city. Right, everything gets destroyed in Living Greyhawk. So here it goes. So there's one little paragraph, and this is by Paul and Creighton. Terashmak shows up with 6,000 gnolls, ogres, and orcs, and just obliterates it. What was the thought process here? I had to know this.
No, hang on. He just said that you wrote that, Paul.
Both of yous.
No, hang on.
Paul and Creighton.
As usual, I was left to clean up after, the core people, the circle had gone and destroyed stuff. So I did that with 10, and I'm doing it here.
Okay.
Probably
wasn't this destroyed in the core module?
Yeah, this is probably the fallout of a module that Paul didn't write.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The module where it was destroyed.
Our job is
what that actually is well, I had to report what had happened. And then most of that article is about the rebuilding of
which I use all this the Southern Spear. I use this whole I have a Gnarl group going, 2 of them actually, and love Falara and her Tritherian connections. And I was just curious as to because as a Sure says, if you didn't destroy something in Living Greyhawk, something's wrong with you.
You weren't trying.
You weren't trying hard enough. But there's some great information in here, Carter's trading post. All this I utilize. I wanted to ask that. I want to bring it back for a future discussion on a lot of these in-depth.
I think it was destroyed in a core module.
Okay.
So I think because we got saved, and we did a couple of the ones on the cities in the northern Wild Coast. Actually, I think we did Highport as well.
Yes.
Is that
you were
important,
largely the spirit of renewal, Paul. You were the one that that got sent in if something was destroyed and you tried to fix it.
Yeah.
I
wrote 3 cores trying to put 10 back together.
Yeah, you came back and you renewed it with a kind of Arthurian
to Lance Ropeler.
You know, so Paul was always trying to like fix what had
paper over the cracks.
Yeah, he was
assassinated.
He's a healer, you know. There should be an NPC named after him that wanders around all these ruins, bringing back life and rebuilding things slightly. So
perhaps daisies grow in his footsteps and flowers.
Sounds a cross between Gwydizian and the Cranes and the Walker.
Yeah, exactly. The Walker, grow Walker or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there was an awful lot of that where areas that we liked or we loved would just be like destroyed.
So you should tell the story of how you convinced us not to kill Gian Destron.
All right. So
please.
Originally, so Gian Destron, who's the Zek of Onnwal, or effectively the Zek of Onnwal, was supposed to die in the original 5-year plan. But when we got to year 5, I sent a really plaintive email to Paul and Creighton going, let's not kill him. And I listed every major NPC in the Flanness who'd been killed in Living Greyhawk, which included...
Oh, wow.
I can't remember who it was.
It's a long list.
Theocrat Ogdentillet had died, and we never knew him, really. He, Countess Bellissica of Ernst. I'm strong to think there were people all over the place.
I love that list.
I
had that list on my wall.
Yeah, and I was like, why don't we do something different and let them live? Because originally Gian Destron was supposed to go off in a blaze of glory in some naval battle.
He was supposed to die in Scant. He was supposed to die in the naval battle.
No, because we would have because the idea was if the players had messed up, he would have died in Scant. Because they would have marched the army in. Originally, he was supposed to go off on some naval battle and get killed anyway. Okay, and I was like, well, maybe that's not such a good idea. And also, he's not a particularly competent ruler in the sense that he never had the complete training. And there's also the problem where he was supposed to have married that woman that he got up the duff with the creepy child. And she's kind of upset now. It's actually more interesting if he lives, and we're not doing the same thing as every other triad where we killed off our ruler.
And it was a persuasive argument, yeah.
I mean, I would have loved to kill off Gian Destron and replace him with Zek Stuart Kerrigan or someone, some NPC like that. But we like the reason we were writing in Greyhawk is that we like the setting. I didn't want to change it so it's irreparable. I would have loved that Zek Stuart. Actually, could we do that?
Yeah,
it's a real noble name, Zek Stewart. Because we have
Stuart, if you want to do that, just simply write to the RPJ UK.
Because there's a Countess Rachel Geller of Ernst, and I think that's like a Friends reference. Could it be any more reference? I'm kind of like Bellissica. We never knew her. It's not like she'd been written up in anything. A lot of the triads killed off their ruler. We decided to stick with ours and just make him, a source of adventure.
I'm in the middle of a civil war.
Yeah, he was going to be in the middle of a civil war, and he was probably not. Well, I think he would have eventually, probably would have come good, but it would have been up to the players to prop him up for a while, because that's why we have players and why we're not writing a novel.
Yeah,
the players would have had to do stuff, or they could decide he was useless and ditch him for that nice Elysian ambassador or
Raquel Church.
A large bag of money.
A large bag of money, yes.
For everyone. Money for everyone.
Money for everyone. Yeah. Knights of the Chase.
I wanted to share this with Creighton just because this is really recent. We have a new group of Onnwal characters. They're only first and second level. And Bill, the Master Crafter, was just on. He came to me with an idea because we have a knight class. It's loosely based on the Knights of the Rose, right? We ripped it off from loosely. We have a Knight of the Heart, Knight of Ulick, and a Knight of the Holy Shielding. And he said, can we add the Knight of the Chase and make it a fourth subclass of that? And this was only a couple months ago, Creighton, and he brought this to me with all the abilities, and we back converted it, the Knight of the Chase, down to a first edition Knight of the Chase class for us in our tables. I just wanted to show you that your stuff is still being utilized to this day. Yeah, it's really a nice.
I'm looking at it on my second screen, Paul.
Oh.
Yeah,
got mine over here.
Definitely, you got your Nemon's Brethren Services, your War Dog, and your Intelligent Hawk. He hasn't gotten to that level yet, the character, to have them, but that's going to be part in there. And just a nice bit of writing if you like Tretherian. you know, Tritharian's one of our favorite deities. Tritharian kind of disappears after third edition, which is really strange.
He's a perfect adventuring god, as far as I can
absolutely. And he despises Foltest people, which makes it even better, right? Because I love that animosity between Tritharian and Foltest, just to show it's not always good against evil.
So it's our main enemy is the Judean People's Front kind of thing, you know, from Monty Python.
Yeah.
Our main enemy, the Splitters. You know, they basically are fighting. They're two sides of the same coin. They could be allies if they wanted to be. But, you know,
yeah, definitely.
Once we deal with those Fultons, we'll get on with the Scarlet Brotherhood. Dealing with the Scarlet Brotherhood, we have to deal with them first.
And we can go into detail in the future. Hopefully, we get a future discussion going where we go into a lot of your publications from everyone. That would be awesome. But I just wanted to bring that up. That I really appreciate the work that you have done in the for D&D. You know, just contributions. It's fantastic. So another audience question was: Are any of you playing Greyhawk to this day? Do you have groups? Would you consider getting grouped together or even one shots? You know, because I know a lot of the audience. There's a lot of UK people. My longest subscriber, the Nazis in the UK. There's a lot of people who would really be interested. So, who wants to take up those questions on playing currently?
I was playing some Greyhawk last year. During lockdown, I was running a 5e game, but now I'm currently playing Call of Cthulhu. Sadly,
that's okay.
But I would absolutely, I would lunge into a Greyhawk game. One of the things I'd love to do is play first edition D&D again, but I cannot lure any of my friends, damn them, into the joys of, you know, old school D&D. My last 5th edition game was, who are you pointing at? Because next to you,
Jay. I'm pointing at Jay.
My last
first edition 22.
Yeah, no, my last Greyhawk game was 5th edition, and I'd love to go back to, you know, 1st or 2nd edition. Just brilliant, just for fun.
I have to pull you into a game with Anna and maybe Ed or someone. You know, get one of those groups. That would be no problem.
I have a spare set of dice, and I have the rule book, so I should be there. And I've got a couch sheet already.
Very, very cool. Awesome. Anyone? Any of the rest of the panel want to talk about that? Anyone playing still?
Running a lot of games for youth clubs. I've started actually.
That's awesome.
Basically under 18-year-olds, we're running 5 games a week.
Wow.
Various things, mostly 5th edition, but also Call of Cthulhu. So 2 games are face to face. 3 games are actually online every week. Number of kids and players who actually played through the games in the last 18 months, about 85. At least one session, about 30 regulars. So
that's awesome.
So again, all good. This basically, I started running a club, and then COVID obviously hit, and we all had to go underground, and it built up from there. So
awesome.
What edition? Nice. I'm sorry. Was that you playing 5th?
Nearly all 5th. Basically, when you got 8-9-year-old kids, you've got to basically start them there, and then work around. You know,
these kids with their newfangled ideas like 5th edition.
Yeah.
Math makes sense. Math.
There is a 3rd edition game that's planned, and we hopefully
a retro game.
You never know.
So, anyone else want to take that?
Use this? If anyone would like to help me use this,
wow.
Yeah, it won't be a problem.
Lovely.
It won't be a problem.
I bought this when I was
gorgeous cover as well.
What class do you have? What class is your character?
Any class you need.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to be a Cavalier, 1st edition Cavalier.
Oh, yes. Well, the Joust, we had a whole bunch of Cavaliers in it just recently, last Saturday night, the Grand Joust. Yep.
I don't know if any other Cavalier would want to be in the same room as me. You know, I'd probably be really obnoxious.
Alyssa.
It's very unlike Cavaliers.
Yeah, Alyssa Faden was played a Paladin, but she was a fighter subclass Paladin. Her character was pretty obnoxious, so it's not like. Trust me, you know, you get a lot of obnoxious characters in there, but it's always part of the fun.
I've not been really playing a lot of D&D since Onnwal. I think I wanted to go darker, more gritty. So I got into Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which is another British game, which Carl Sargent wrote quite a lot for.
Yeah,
so
Chris Pramus too. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Premis did 2nd edition of that. Yeah. Carl Sargent did Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. He also did a bit of Advanced Hero Quest, I discovered. So he's responsible for all my gaming.
And fighting fantasy novels, too.
And fighting fantasy novels, yeah. He did that under a pseudonym, though. I would never have realized that. So I played a lot of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and I've written some stuff for that as well. I like settings now where the players don't have lots of magic items.
Yes, barely any.
Stab them, they stay dead. And, if you hack, but I would love to get back into Greyhawk, D&D. I've got the 5th edition PHB. I've played a couple of games of it. I know roughly what I'm doing, but I still have to ask Paul questions now. Like, are paladins still lawful good, or has that changed? Now
they're champions. It's
like,
you can be.
They're lawful good. They're lawful good.
I mean, that's what they did to the class. They messed it up.
I'm out of touch with it now. I'm like, how does this all work? I used to be back in the day of Onnwal. I was I know the rules inside out. Well, at least I thought it did. But now I'm like, how does it work? What's a D20? So I need somebody to kind of retrain me again, I think. But I'd love to play or GM in Greyhawk because it's a cool setting.
It's the best setting, Stuart.
So here's my thought. Because I usually start at 6 p.m. on a Saturday night, that's not going to work for you guys. Because it'll be like midnight to start, and then it runs through the night. So I think we'd have to do a morning. We'd have to do a morning session, a special Saturday morning special game session, a one shot or some sort. I could put that together easily. That's easy.
So we can reach out to Sampo and crew as well. See if anyone else in that time zone area.
No, well, I'm thinking
they're offset another hour. They're an hour ahead of us.
You're not thinking grandiose, Casey. You're not thinking grandiose enough. I'm bringing Venarian Vord into this game.
Well,
I'm getting Eric Mona in this game.
If you want to throw us in a pit with a torch, go for it.
Right,
torch and a priest of Relish.
Yes, exactly.
It was a nice pit. There were no spikes.
Come on, Eric would jump on this to play with you guys.
I would love to play with you guys. I'll be a bit rusty on the mechanics.
I calculate everything.
I'll be there with the bells on, so I'm probably playing the bard if I've got bells.
Well, there's 1E, 2E, remember, so it's not 5.
Yeah, it's going to be
easy. Anna's probably up for it. She plays probably more than anyone else in Jay's games.
Yeah, I have 3 different characters. I played probably about 30 something.
Someone has to be a monk, Moose says. If someone's a monk, then Skageth's not watching, so.
Paul, you're still playing D&D, though,
I do, yeah. I play 5e. Both of my campaigns are in hiatus at the moment. So the campaign I play in that started 30 years ago, that's a 2E campaign set in Nyrond. I've been playing the same character since the start. Haven't managed to die yet.
But
that's been in hiatus. Yeah, that's been in hiatus since kind of COVID, and our GM's in Belgium, so we haven't got that back together. We're trying to resuscitate it.
Online games.
We'll have to go to online, but we're negotiating that. And then to sort of fill that gap, I ran 2 seasons of a 5e campaign, which started off in Ernst. I did a conversion of Fandelver. It was our, these were 2E players. I brought them over. We'll say we'll run Fandelver. We'll change it into Greyhawk, obviously. So I ran that down in the Duchy of Ernst. Then I brought them in the 2nd season then to Castle Greyhawk and ran them through some very highly modified levels of Greyhawk ruins.
Oh, cool.
So they're now headed for the Wild Coast. So I think we're starting to, they're saying it's getting towards winter time. That's when we normally sort of play. So they're kind of eager to carry on and see what's going to happen in the Wild Coast. So that is coming in the next little while. But then I also play other games. I play a lot of Glorantha, Heroes Quest Glorantha and stuff like that. So it's great.
Well, we'll make that happen. That's not a problem at all. We'll make a game happen. That'll be awesome. One shot of some sort. Bring in someone special. Who knows who we can get to come in the game with you guys. It'll be wonderful. So I have a question. The Big Mac's gonna drive me crazy if I don't ask. Where would there be a spell jamming port in Onnwal? I have to ask it.
I think he's thinking it's in canon.
Well, hey, he asked it. I wanted to respond to that. So,
where would we put a spell jamming port?
There you go. I asked.
Ant.
Well, we do have a mount.
It got blown up.
It's
Get
gone.
answered.
It was there. It was so beautiful as well.
Yeah,
So ornate.
we were going to roll it out if the players, had succeeded, but they didn't. So sad times.
They did succeed. Those players,
cool.
they saved the army
They
of
built it in
rebellion.
Onnwal just 2 days before it was liberated. Oh, Scamp. Didn't they build it in Scamp just before it was liberated?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly when it was built.
Whoops.
It was a big Scarlet Brotherhood sort of, effort.
Scarlet
so
Brotherhood
funny.
Scarlet Brotherhood in space, because when a franchise goes to space,
Space.
only good things can happen.
That's really cool. All right, so anyway, I know we're coming on to 2 hours here. So, what would you all, the four of you, like to say in closing? And then we'll do some quickies, and also some shout outs if what you got going on now. More than happy to hear if you have any businesses going on in the RPG industry. That'd be wonderful. Who wants to start? We'll start with Simon down the lower right. How's that?
Oh, down the lower right. Well, I am doing some stuff with a certain other person around this table. Obviously, he's doing a lot more of his sort of stuff than I'm sort of helping him with. But I'm basically doing quite a lot of what I used to do with Onnwal to actually help and push this guy along. So I'll leave some of the explanation to another. Basically an alternate history game, hopefully published in the next few months.
Oh, cool.
Which would be good. Roman era. What else have I got?
Cool.
Basically everything else is club related. So one of the things we've discovered when we organise the youth role playing clubs is that as far as face-to-face events, it's still an incredibly rare rare thing that people are actually organising youth events outside of education in the UK. So that's exciting, and we do have sponsorship now from the local council and stuff like that, and see how it goes.
Very cool.
But I have to leave.
Simon, thank you.
What I'm doing to a certain other person. Yes. Okay.
Thank you so very much for coming on, especially short notice, Simon. Really
Yeah, it
appreciate
was awesome.
Thank you.
Paul.
We'll get you in the Discord group, Simon.
Sure. Hey, well, before I start going into the various kind of projects, I do want to give a shout out to the people in the other Triad people who aren't here. We got Jenny McPhee, Andy Bourne, Paul James, Steve Spencer, Steve Pierce, Thomas Ralph. I think that's everyone. And then the people who were in the ODT who made all of this possible, and they deserve a shout out. So we got, in no particular order, we got Andy Houston, Rob Wills, Tony Barber, Jared Cummins, Andy Glenn, Jim Brown, Bill Howard, Tom Moore, Richard Keaties, Adam Canning, Max Kraft, Andy McGuire, John Leeper, Dave McAllister, Andy McPhee, and a lot of other people. And if I missed your name, I apologize. But they are as much part of this Onnwal achievement as anyone else. So it's not just we four. It was a big team effort.
I think in hindsight, a Triad was just too small for the UK. We needed more. It should have been a Octad or something.
I mean, effectively, it was.
Whatever.
We couldn't have done it without the ODT.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, they all deserve the Max Kraft Award for lifetime service.
Lifetime service and running many.
We didn't have a formal title, but in the BK, we had players. One would be in charge of this meta org. One would be in charge of writing up that meta org, and just kind of pumping them up on Yahoo groups and whatnot. We had someone who was in charge of special missions. We had Triad assistants who were kind of understudies who would themselves slot into the Triad once that Triad member either became a circle member or had to retire from the campaign because they had a baby foolishly or something like that. As someone with no kids, that's what I like to call it when you have children. But so it's a great thank you for giving them kudos and credit.
Yeah, no, I mean it's easy to be up here. Well, it's easy to be here, but I mean it was a lot of work back in the day by a lot of people. So
they made us look good. I mean, Andy and Jenny wrote modules with me. When I say wrote them with me, I wrote something on a piece of paper and they produced a complete module and then stick my name at the end. It's just having people like that. Just they made us look good.
Yeah, and of course all the players who
absolutely.
it wasn't just us pushing out modules. It was people coming and coming to conventions, playing at home, and then telling us what they did. And we tried to work that into the whole story and everything else. So a big thank you to everyone who was involved.
Yeah, it was fun. They were all wonderful people. They were. So on my side, ever since like an ancient evil, I was sort of awoken from my Odin sleep by Jay and this sort of stuff, like the mentions on Twitch and on YouTube. I got involved with, like I said, with Rich Longitalis, trying to flesh out that Living Greyhawk modules index. I also pulled together all of those Mysterious Places articles into a PDF, which I must share out, actually. It's 116 pages of all of that stuff just formatted out into a PDF, just so it doesn't get lost. And then I shared on Greyhawk there recently. I'm doing a population density map of the Flannace. Based on Anna's maps, based on your wonderful. So there's going to be a second edition of that because it needs tweaking. But that was there was Norker and Gary Holian and a couple of people on there kind of got me onto that. And then also speaking of Gary Holian, it's always Gary Holian's fault. I'm working with Stu and him on an adventure path, which I'm not sure how much we're supposed to reveal about, but we're working on an adventure. Yeah,
good.
We're getting the band back together. Getting the band back.
Yeah. And I've also got some stuff because I clearly have too much time on my hands. I'm also doing some climate work, which I must talk to you about.
That's Anna's done hot Earth, cold Earth, all those.
Yeah. But using the glossography as the sort of basis for it, because glossography gives you a lot of information. It's not like Earth. It's very not like Earth. So there's some interesting stuff there. But that's kind of me.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate coming on. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me.
You're the only one I know exactly where to get a hold of on Cannon Fire. So I'm sorry, on Discord. So I need everyone else's Discords. Okay, just so because Casey won't give them to me. So
I know how to get in touch with you. Don't worry.
All right, because we want to coordinate this game. I'm kidding, Casey. I know you'll share them with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we can get that game going. All right, so Stuart, what do you got going?
Well, I have, it's a little bit old now, but I have a podcast, which I haven't updated in a few years. And if you're into Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay or the sound of my voice, it's a perfect place for you to go. Website is anchor.fm/peril, if you're interested. And I might put some Greyhawk on there if I start running some Greyhawk.
That'd be awesome.
Audio Let's Play. There's sound effects as well, because I like to use Sirenscape in my games. A free plug there. Wait a minute.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm banned for using Sirenscape, Stuart. My players say you're transient enough with all the other things you got going on. So yeah.
Yeah. My group doesn't like me using it either, even though I love doing the wah 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 noise whenever they do something.
It works okay with online play because they can just turn it off if they don't want to listen to the screams of their characters dying in the fire. When I use population maps to go find all the people to kill.
That's so awesome. Very cool. Well,
have you been up to anything recently?
Okay.
So again,
got to get you back. Got to get you all back involved a little here and there. And it sounds like some of you are, and that's great. And then Creighton, what do you got going on?
Well, kind of a bit like Paul, I suppose, in some ways. Working in Living Greyhawk kind of aroused my excitement for publishing gaming stuff. And so when Living Greyhawk finished, I did a bit of freelance. And then I started my own publishing company, Raging Storm Press, which continues to this day. I'm the publisher of useful items there. If you can guess the magic item I took that away from, you can have a free book. Simon does a lot of my PDFing and
a few of your supplements, but nowhere near as many balls, my friend.
He's still a technical guy, but we publish 5th edition Pathfinder 1 OSR system of neutral stuff, and it's going really well. I'm really enjoying life. It's great. I game for a living, so
it's awesome.
It's
living the dream.
Is it your full-time gig, freelancing?
I don't freelance anymore. No.
Oh, I mean for yourself.
Yes.
That's awesome. Nice. Congratulations.
has
But at
been,
least I can game for beer as well. It's more than that, but I need another bottle of whiskey, my friend.
good man. Well, I'll send you one.
Okay.
No,
If I
it's been-
remember correctly, Raging Swan is maybe best known for their dungeon dressing series. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think we've got a. So I'm not big on crunch. Crunch has never really excited me beyond all measure. I think that to have a really immersive and exciting game, it's the flavor, it's the verisimilitude, or however you want to pronounce it.
Verisimilitude.
That's the thing. You know, I don't care what special ability the orcs got. Is it a memorable game?
Yeah.
So we produce lots and lots of flavoursome products. For example, if you want to look at one of, I'm very proud of this. If you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Please
The
do.
camera will
Please.
follow him too. He's got fancy
what?
tracking camera.
Fancy camera, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's that or is one of his kids behind it. I'm
it's
not sure
linked.
which.
It's
Yeah,
linked on
sorry.
drive-through too. It's linked in chat. Yeah.
This is our most recent book. It's
Holy cow.
480 pages, 270,000 words, and it's just
And I've
loads of,
written 3 of them.
yeah. Oh, you did 4, Si.
Oh gosh.
4 words.
but
Wow,
yeah,
with
it's
a
just
good
great.
word,
It's
Simon.
dressings, it's
Yeah, they
campaign
were good
dressings.
words.
Yeah, they were. You know,
They
if
were
you
well
want to
chosen.
add
What's in
depth
it?
and flavour to it in or whatever, this is your book.
What's in this
What's in
book,
it,
Craig?
Creighton?
It's a Dreadonomicon, of course.
It's lots of lists of things. So if you were going into a slaver's compound, who are the slavers? Who are the slaves? If you go into a tavern, who's in the common room? What are they serving to drink? If you go into the sewers, you know, what's the channel like? You know, all that kind of stuff you can use to add depth and flavour to games to make it more immersive. It's all about suspension of disbelief, isn't it? And if you can't suspend your player's disbelief,
That's right.
The hardcover's on sale at drive-through right now.
Ooh.
It's reduced from
it's one of our most recent books. It's it's 7 years of it's a compilation of 7 years worth of material.
That's beautiful.
So yeah, it's been
Ready
quite
to-
well received, which is really nice. It is quite heavy to hold, so I put it down.
It also doubles as a self-defense weapon.
Yes, and you can also prop doors open with it, jack up cars.
Yeah.
Stop a bullet too. That book.
Well,
I
from
would think
range,
so.
I expect. I don't really know, but from range, yeah.
So if I wanted to throw some characters down a pit with just a torch, would your book help me describe the pit?
Yes, because you could set fire to the books to it and it would burn for ages.
No.
Not the book. The stuff in the
No.
book.
That's so
I meant,
awesome.
would it help me describe the pit by using the book, not by setting it on fire?
Yes, it will say
Okay.
you fall and you continue to fall and then you plummet.
The permanent fall there.
No,
Well,
I mean,
you might tell us
all
what
my
you
my love of publishing and writing came from Living Greyhawk. It was,
It's
you know, Living
beautiful.
Greyhawk was the start of everything for me, you know, writing wise. It was a very
great
good time of my
experience.
life.
And one of the future shows I want to put together is
Cool,
the
man.
Living Greyhawk alumni who are in the gaming professional community now, whether it's Mona, SRM, Chris Tulloch, etc. The people who work for Wizards, Lundeen, who just went from Paizo, and who I believe, and he might correct me on this, but I believe he is working on 5.5. I'm not going to call it 6th edition when it's going to be backwards compatible, but I think he's working on 5.5. And he was a US Triad member.
And it's
So
great writing, yeah.
we should certainly reach out to you guys and have you on the show. And I need to get that organized in the future.
That sounds like the League of Extraordinary Gamers.
Yes.
They're like the Justice League.
But
The League of Pacific-
we can get a game together on a Saturday morning before the end of the year. There's no doubt in my mind. That's not a problem within the next 2 months. You know,
Awesome.
I'll get that arranged. Absolutely. So,
Time to dig the pit then.
yes, time to get some really crazy. You know, you want a Cavalier? You can have a Cavalier. That's fine.
Oh, don't get a
Yes, you can have an arrogant Cavalier, and I will.
No, you
Yeah,
just
but
get a
no
Cavalier,
horse.
no horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no. See.
That's the Dungeons and Dragons I remember.
You've got the saddle, but no horse.
One stinking cloud, and your horse is done. Right? Come on, think about it. I
Getting flashbacks of never ending
No, too soon.
So, thank you all for coming on. Casey and Anna will do some quickie shout outs there. What's going on?
Well, we can do tomorrow.
All right, yeah, okay. Anna will do
Yeah.
tomorrow then. So, Casey, what do you got going on?
I just wanted to give a quick thank you again, guys. Onnwal, Triad.
Yeah, 2 giveaways.
Splintered Sun Circle. This was brilliant. Thank you very much. To the audience for showing up and supporting on a Saturday morning.
Absolutely.
And if you're new to the show, please throw a like and follow at Jay. For myself, a couple months ago, we published my Seaton article in the Orworth Journal. Harry Holian was very kind, the Keelan master himself, to review that. So if you haven't seen that yet, that spawned out of my Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign, my 5e campaign, now entering its 4th year with my 8 players. Most of them show up for every session.
It's awesome.
We're about to start the final adventure in Ghosts of Saltmarsh itself, the Styes, but I just had to run. Ghosts of Saltmarsh needs some filler. My most recent filler, I took a Candlekeep adventure, and I replaced the bad guy from Candlekeep with Sunaferal Brightrose. I'm using Iusians as the main bad guy in Ghosts of Saltmarsh, even though it's in Keelan, because hail Iuse. That's my background in Greyhawk. So
Saltmarsh could do with filler. There's this small island called a small peninsula, called Onnwal that you could go to.
Didn't even occur to me.
Next door, Stuart.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking I'd make a great DM's Guild article, but I didn't think I'd get away with that somehow.
Well, you'll have to write that one up.
No, I don't think it would. I don't think it would fly.
Nah.
Well, then I stole. Speaking of stealing from Candlekeep, I'm also running a 5e Candlekeep campaign. I'm using the book itself with the players work at Candlekeep, and then the plot hook finds them in the stacks of the library. So it's a very quick
doing that.
Bing bam boom, and I call it a Scooby-Doo type setup. It's an adventure a week or a session, whatever, and they're all unrelated. It's just the PCs, stuff happens to them, and we're entering our 3rd year now of this group, and maybe 2nd year of Candlekeep. So that's a lot of fun. And then I have 2 projects I really need to start working on more. One is called Too Many Gods. I'm taking all the gods of Greyhawk, and I'm looking at them and seeing where is their duplication between the different species, and I'm merging them into one being, and I'm creating a hierarchy to thin them out. And I'm also going to explain why Thrisden, I'm treating Thrisden as Al, the overgod of Oworth, and that's why he was imprisoned, because he actually reached the point where he thought life was ridiculous and he wanted to end it, and all the gods were like, no, we're gonna banish you. That's my theory. I'm working on this article for a future Earth Journal. And then finally, we've been doing these shows for a couple of years now. First, Anna, Mike, and myself did them on the old channel that doesn't exist anymore. And then Jay has been hosting and producing these. I think we're on our season 3 at this point, at least. This might be season 4. I know we did not many last year, but we're doing a good amount this year, and we did a good amount 2 years ago. But my point is, we have a lot of archived history in these shows from having you and our compatriots on. And I think I'm going to start working on a book, The Unofficial Guide to Living Greyhawk, or The Unofficial History of Living Greyhawk. And it'll be a very high level. And I wasn't there in year 0, and I was very specific to the Bandit Kingdoms. I didn't travel very much. But by talking to gentlemen like you and having SRM and Eric Mona and Jason Bullman and the Jeff guys, Eric Mingy, and all the other Triad members who've been kind enough to come on the show, we've learned a lot about the RPGA and Living Greyhawk. So I think someone has to memorialize that before we all become too old to work on such projects. So I think I really need to start on that.
And you're just the guy to do it.
Yep.
I don't.
And I kind of think this is a case where, everyone else is too busy, and as I don't have kids, so that saves me 50% of my time, right? I don't have to worry about that. When you get
teenage children, they don't want to talk to you anyway. So
So there's
the first 10 years that you got to get through.
There's a kind of sweet spot though where it all evens out. Then either way.
I've been told it gets better about the age of 21.
When they're out of the house,
when they leave,
Look after you so you can write your great scholarly tome on Greyhawk.
They can look after in your dotage.
Yes.
Right.
Hey, I'm 55 with a 12-year-old, so.
And I keep buying lottery tickets with the hope that I'll win one of the big U.S. lotteries, and then I'll just fly my butt to Seattle, or actually Wizards of the Coast is down the road in Rhode Island or somewhere, right? Or Hasbro. I'm just going to skip over Wizards of the Coast. I'm going to go to Hasbro, and I'm going to cut them a check, and
that's fantasy.
And get Greyhawk going. But that's the pipe dream.
That's fantasy.
Just walk in with 2 bags of money, put them on the desk, and say, "I want to talk about Greyhawk.
I want one Greyhawk, please."
Money talks, but it's going to take a lot of money.
Not enough.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's important to kind of make sure that there's still stuff out there for the next generation of players.
Yep.
You know, it'd be nice if
Very
there was
much
some Greyhawk stuff coming out that new players could use and get into the world, so that they can pick through the ruins of what we've
Scanned.
blown up. Yeah, someone's got to clean that
The
up.
ruins of ruins.
It's not going to be me.
I'm cleanup guy. Clean up in aisle 4.
Yeah. Well, you only start the rebuilding though, Paul. You leave the others to kind of,
That's right.
You make a single flower bloom and then you wander off, and we all cry for a second and then fix the place.
So tomorrow night, normal Gavin's show. We're going to continue with where are the resources for Greyhawk? Well, another one that a lot of people don't know about. There's a lot of Dungeon Magazine adventures that are specifically written for Greyhawk. We'll go over a bunch of them. All right, and we'll do that tomorrow. Anna, myself, and Never Mysterious Tim. That'll be at 7:00. And next week there is no Legends and Lore on Wednesday. I got a work thing that I can't get out of, but this kind of fills that Legends and Lore for you. So no Wednesday Legends and Lore. And then next Saturday is another big the Slav Squad. Asher's favorite named adventuring group out there comes back. The all-female cast with and Josh. So I had to throw it in there. With a Halloween special, The Prophecies of the Overgord. The Overgord is a monster created by Mike Disney. Reaper made a miniature for it, and this will be the second year we do a little special thing. Got some new terrain coming too, painted by Bill. It was custom made for it, and there's your cast. That'll be next Saturday night at 6:00. So I mock your pain, Dale. I know I do. Yes, I do for that name of that group, but it's a real fun group. They are really good players, all old school, of course. Let's do the 2 giveaways, and we're going to raid into Troller Games, who's on one of our great sponsors. Last call. I'm giving away 2 $10 gift certificates to Troller Games. We have so many people overseas. I'm thinking if I give away reprints, it's like it's probably not a good idea on this show. We'll give away digital Troller Game gift certificates, which we have plenty of. So last call. Get in there. I'll do two names, and I'll send them right over to you.
And a $10 gift certificate is now £10, I believe, thanks to our wonderful exchange rate.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's roughly 100 now, I think.
Our economy is crashing.
$1.03.
Yeah.
It's got better than a pound recently.
And you can get a lot of great things over at Troller Games there. So 2000 Caesar, if you're on, winner number 1 and winner number 2, Sparky 68. You both have to be on to claim. And if not, I will go to the next Caesar I see on, and I don't see Sparky on though. Uh-oh. So we'll see. Caesar's in. Okay, I see you, Caesar. I'll send that to you. I'll get Sparky 10 seconds. If not, I'm drawing another person. I don't see him on. 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, I'll pick someone else. Phantom 491 Phantom. And I see you right there saying congrats to Caesar. So you got it. Those 2 I will get right over to you. Awesome. Creighton, Stewart, Paul, Simon, thank you so very much. I'll be in touch with you. We'll get a game set up sometime in the very near future, and we will have some fun with that. Casey, thank you always for setting this up. This is a fantastic discussion. And Anna, I'll see you tomorrow night for a really cool.
Yeah, and we'll look to do a deep dive into the meta orgs and NPCs after the new year. You guys pick another Saturday morning. We'll get together January, February, March, something like that. Let's not wait too long.
Yep. Cool. Definitely get some more discussion going. It's always great to have people back and talk about other topics too. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all. We're going to read into Troller Games here. Everyone, please sit tight. Say hello to Chuck. He's running the game right now. I rarely get to read into him on a Saturday morning. Let's take advantage of it. And so thank you. Thank you, Gary. It was a wonderful discussion. We'll see you all tomorrow night. Hope you have a nice weekend. And thank you all for participating here. All right, let me set this rate up real quick. Look at that. We're only 22 minutes over time. I really appreciate you all hanging in there. It's Casey's fault. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, totally.
Let me set the rate up in Joe Lord. My voice is starting to go too. Look at that. We're gonna get over 75. Oh, close. All right, 65, 4, 3.
Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks a lot. See you tomorrow night.
Oh, thank you all.
Awesome. Make sure the raid went. Shut this off.
Yeah,
We're good.
raiding is where we send everybody to different channels.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
since most of